Hey, everybody, and welcome to the podcast that's dedicated to making you a faster cyclist, the Ask a Cycling Coach podcast presented by Trainer Road. I'm Coach Jonathan Lee, not with our head coach, Chad Timmerman, but with one of our product managers and our Team Cliff Bar Racing's Pete Morris.
Howdy, guys.
How's it going, man?
Good. I feel like I was thinking about it this morning. If you go to dinner, like expecting you're going to have Chad with you at dinner, and then I show up instead, that's got to be a little disappointing.
I think the audience will be okay with it. You're a good guest. Thanks for coming in off the bench.
Yeah, for sure.
Chad just got back from the USAC, or a coaching summit that he went to, and he's under the weather. So this is Pete filling in for him.
Half the company is sick.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, at least. And Nate, our CEO, Nate Pearson, how you doing?
Hey. I was supposed to say hey. I forgot I promised to say that to somebody.
Oh, man, yeah.
Yeah, so now I'm doing it.
Well, there you are. It's done. You also have been sick.
Yep, I got a cold.
Yep.
And now it's that transition part where the cold is done, but I'm about to get a sinus infection, but I'm still getting stuff out. And that's where I've had my surgeries and stuff to try to fix. And if I can beat it this time, I'll be unstoppable. I don't know. Something will happen.
Yeah, it's the time of year. Everyone's kind of sick around here. With that said, though, let's just jump into a few things before we get into the questions that people have sent in this week. Also, if you're joining us live, you can do so, by the way, every week. Usually it's Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific. And it's on Facebook or YouTube, and you can join us live and ask your questions. And then we usually, after like the standard recording of the podcast, we'll take some time to answer those questions a little bit off the cuff and kind of fun. So you can join us for that. You can also see us. I'm not sure you actually want to do that, but you can see us. And you can do that. Hey.
Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. And that is also, of course, on Facebook and YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast, wherever it is, please, you can like and share the podcast with your friends. Sharing is probably the most important thing. We can rate it too, but we appreciate sharing. That's pretty good stuff.
And shout out to everyone who rated our apps.
Yeah.
Watching. Thank you so much for rating them.
It's pretty awesome.
But if everyone else, I want to beat Peloton. Peloton's got 22,000 ratings.
Oh, we can beat that.
We could totally beat Peloton's ratings.
Yeah.
That would be so cool to have more ratings than Peloton.
Yeah, let's do that.
So it's like we're definitely a different market than Peloton, but it's similar. But I say the roadies and the mountain bikers are better than the...
We're way more dedicated.
Yeah. Yes,
right?
exactly, than the spinners.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Show your dedication.
If they can
I like
rate
the Peloton, though.
Yeah, if they can rate it, we can rate it, right?
That's exactly right.
So App Store for iTunes and Google Play.
That's the way to do it. You can also find out more about this episode that we're listening to, episode 185. You can listen to what's up?
That's a lot.
It's a lot of them, right? We're getting up to 200. You can go on to forum.trainerroad.com. We built a forum on there because we noticed that a lot of you podcast listeners all wanted to connect with each other, discuss certain things, and that's where it happens. A lot of that happens. It's really good discussion, but the cool part is it's super easy to search and find things. We use a system that's very efficient with that. So you can go on there, and there will actually be the same exact episode title that you're seeing when you loaded this podcast. You'll find that on the forum. It's super easy. And you can find the live stream there. You can find questions. Producer Ian will be posting any sort of pictures or anything else up when we're saying things. Hi, Producer Ian. He's earned his paycheck today. It was a busy morning. But anyways, you can go into there, check out the forum. It's awesome. Plenty of awesome stuff in there. Check out trainerroad.com. We have some updates coming soon to that, but then we also have a lot of different updates that we pushed. Like recently, one of them that we pushed, for those that don't know, the calendar tool that you have, it's super helpful. I use Calendar many times a day. In fact, I've actually found myself starting to use Google Calendar less, and I found myself starting to just put life events into the calendar because it's just easier. It's easier to use. Anyways, within there, we now made it so you can copy workouts really easily. Like it's basically you click copy workout, then you click where you want that copied workout to sit. It's
2 clicks.
Simple. It's so nice.
Did the 2 clicks update come out? Because it was 4 clicks, and then we fixed that, so now it's 2 clicks.
It's 2 clicks.
2 clicks.
Okay.
It's pretty sweet. Yeah, you've been under the weather, so you've been out of it. Yeah.
It's there.
Yep.
It's so fast.
It's also easy if you make a mistake. It's really easy to delete workouts now. You can just do it with one click.
One click.
Yep. So that makes it really, really handy. So you can check that out. If any of you have a Trainer Road account, you have access to that training calendar, and it's super, super, super helpful. I've been looking at my training stress lately because I've been training. Very excited about that.
I've been training a lot.
I know. It's pretty good. Last night I did 2 hours and 45 minutes of tempo.
Ooh.
It was pretty tiring, man. It was hard. But we got it done. Just the same, I've been looking at that, and I've been watching my TSS trend. We have friend of the podcast, Keegan Swenson, coming into town this weekend, and we have some riding that we're going to do, and I realized that with the riding that we have planned, I'm likely going to push my TSS a little bit too far. So as a result, I actually took today's workout off, and my TSS balanced back out.
Because you had it all planned out.
Because I could see it. It's pretty handy.
That's smart, especially with everyone being sick around here. that's something that I wish we had the TR summit here. Like we have half our employees are remote. They all came into Reno, and we did a whole bunch of stuff. Vigorous team building.
Busy.
Yeah, and we just like half the company got sick. Half people were sick during it. But when I wish I would have during those busy life times, I should have planned ahead. I tried to do normal training through that.
Ooh,
it just didn't work.
that'd be really rough.
I could have I tapered one, or I had one workout go back, but I should have. You want to go into that being fresh.
Totally.
Not super tired.
That's a really good point. We should
like
actually
a
talk
stage
about
race.
that really quick because we can learn from this. There are takeaways and
Yeah.
questions that we get all the time. I actually just did not train through the week. I had great plans. It was all laid out. I was very excited. And then once I got close to it, everyone around me was getting sick. I was sick the weekend before. And I just thought, you know what? There's no point in me trying to train through this. I'm just going to likely dig myself into a deeper hole. It's going to be too stressful. So I actually took like the approach of just cutting it all off. What did you do, Pete?
I knew I had one solid workout in me. And so what I did is I stretched that one workout on Monday. So everybody kind of showed up. We had meetings all day and we went to sushi. So I knew I had to ride because all I'd done is sit around and eat
a lot of
sushi.
sushi.
And so I stretched my workout 30 minutes longer. So I did a 90-minute workout on Monday instead of my normal 60. And I did it, crushed it, and then I didn't do anything until Saturday.
Yeah. You were fine, right?
And I'm the only one that's not. Well, Jonathan's also pretty good. I feel totally fine.
Yep. Yeah, so it's kind of like these, and what we're talking about here is these really busy busy weeks or time periods when you either are going to be very busy with work or family or some other engagements that you have, and as a result, training just looks like it's going to be complex, and also balancing the illness side.
And I did the not smart thing is I usually train in the afternoon, but I got up early to train because I knew we were going to be doing an activity all day long.
Yeah.
And then we were going out after that. So I stretched my day where I eliminated the sleep, did a lot of training, and then did activities all day. And then the kicker was that Saturday, Friday night, where I literally got home and I high-fived my wife because she woke up at 5 and I got home at 5.
Oh, man. That's a rough
That was
night.
a good night for Trainer Road.
Yeah.
Just high-fived her and went to bed. And I think that's what put me over.
Yeah.
24 hours up.
In retrospect, that day of having the vigorous team building that we had, that activity was physically strenuous.
And no drinking.
Emotionally strenuous, too. Like, it was pretty scary. We did, like, this ropes course that was pretty intense.
And I guess a lot of people think ropes courses are lame.
No, this was
the scariest by leaps and bounds of any ropes course I've ever done.
It was a surprise, and no one knew we were going to do it. And when we booked it, I said, make it as intense as you can make it.
Yeah, like I'm just going to describe one of them that I saw Nate doing. We didn't get the chance to do it. It's a telephone pole extended into the air, suspended by a couple cables, so it's wobbly. It's got climbing holds on it.
With none of the climbing holds are bolted in, so they all spin.
They spin, and then you climb all the way up this telephone pole. That's starting out. It's already like 6 feet off the ground or so, and then you get to the top of that. You have to stand on the top of this beam that's nailed into the top, and then you have to jump from that through the air.
But it's with someone else, so standing on that beam it's super skinny. So
and
you're all shaky.
You have to jump and grab a trapeze. Like it's really intense. So
I did that one, and it was the most. My body was rejecting everything I was doing. Mentally, I was okay, but having someone also there standing next to you, wobbling everything and trying to stand up, my body was just fighting every single thing I was doing.
There are so many people listening to this right now that are yelling at you saying that's how they feel during a crit, because that's like what most people feel. Everything telling them no.
Saying, I want to work for Trader Road.
Right, exactly. The what I'm getting at with that though is that it was a very stressful thing. In retrospect, it seems so silly to have done that, right? To like get up early and to work really hard or do a hard workout, then do all of that. Then we had trivia night at a local brew pub and like the whole thing. So it was
a big day.
But that's just how it goes. We get so eager and committed to what we're doing that sometimes we make those choices that aren't the best.
Your eyes are, for me, my eyes are always bigger than what I can handle.
Yeah.
And what I think I'm going to do, I was just talking to Pete about this earlier, using our new calendar feature, is I'm going to take an upcoming recovery week, cut that one out, and put it in for next week. So next week, instead of going back into training, like I think I'll feel fine by Monday. Yeah. But I'm going to just schedule a whole easy week so that I don't get this double sickness thing that happens.
Yeah.
And then not train today, not train tomorrow. Saturday and Sunday, it's going to be really hard not to train. And either 45% an hour or Baxter.
Yeah.
I feel like I should do 45% or nothing, but I really want to do because I built up like
Totally.
momentum, and you don't want to.
You're losing the gains.
Yeah, you don't want to lose the momentum.
But at the same time, if you push yourself into sickness, then you might have weeks,
It's a month.
months.
Before I get back to where I was before, it's always a month.
of like decreased quality training.
We were just talking about that. So the bet Nate's playing is if he does a week and a half easy, he saves 3 weeks of being sick after that, which would happen anyways.
And I had to take a recovery week anyways in the future, so
Yeah.
hopefully by the end of that I feel very fresh and I can do a new block, and I'll just adjust my training on the new calendar. And I'll have to, that'll change a lot of stuff, but I'll just do it.
Yeah. You get to push that week back up. It's
kind of
easy.
fun when you make the plan all perfect. You're like, ooh, this is awesome.
In my dream scenario, this is all going to work exactly.
And then 1 week later, I change it again.
That's how it goes. It should constantly. You should be making changes. It shouldn't just be static.
Life happens.
That's the point of making the calendar. Otherwise, it'd just be really easy to just select and
be
go.
like, just print it out.
Yeah, exactly.
all you
Go
gotta
with
do.
it. Yeah.
Pin it on the wall.
With that, I guess let's go into John's. It's more of like there is a bit of a question to this, but there's also, I guess, a bit of a testimonial that I wanted to throw in here. We got a lot of messages, and I talked about my power to weight ratio goal and talked about my goal for nationals, that I was off base. I was a bit crazy.
Lofty.
Eyes are bigger. Lofty. Yep. Eyes bigger than the stomach, so to speak, right? But check this out. This is from a guy named John, so maybe it's just the name thing. But he says,
Did you write this in?
exactly. He says, just finished yesterday's episode and love hearing your progress as you return. Encouraged every time I hear your updates. So he said that, and by the way, a ton of you have reached out via email and sent me in the lofty goals that you're working for, whether it's national championships for mountain biking or something else. And I really appreciate it. I haven't responded to all of you, but I put you all in a folder, and we're currently strategizing on how we're going to best utilize your guys' stories.
Are you going to, any person going for nationals that'll race against you?
Oh, yeah. Anybody, yeah.
No, what I mean, it's just
Oh, yeah,
it's like,
I get what you
give
mean.
them some bad advice. Or
Yeah. In that case, stop training. It's best to just,
You're much too heavy.
Yeah, exactly right. Anyways, for everybody that has sent that in to my email, jonathan@trainerroad.com, thank you. Another thing, too, sorry, I'm going to interrupt halfway through this, but a bunch of you have been tagging me in your workouts on Instagram, that sort of stuff. You can tag Trainer Road, too, but I've been reposting a bunch of them, too. So if you guys do that, I love that. Keep doing that. It's pretty cool to see. I get like a rising tide like every evening or in the mornings, just like a ton of workouts and people tagging me in them. So that's pretty cool. Appreciated. So he says, I feel like I'm on a similar trajectory, albeit a year ahead of you. I have primarily been a gravel racer, but had a two-year layoff from cycling in 2016 to 2017 due to mono. Oh, have you guys ever had chronic fatigue syndrome of any form like that?
Nope.
I had mono.
Did you?
Yeah. When I was a kid, and my dad said at the doctor, he's like, I don't think he's been kissing any girls, so he's probably drinking from a dog's bowl, because that's what the doctor told us. So. Sad day. Anyways, it's extremely tough. I can only imagine what you went through, John, and that's, really hard. So he mentions the fact that he got back into it. He won a gravel race in Medora, North Dakota, and the same organizer of that race said that, hey, you should do a different one that he does. It's called the Mada Hey, I hope that's how you say it, 100, and it's in North Dakota. We've had a number of different people talk to us about this. It is so hard.
It looks so hard.
It's 107 miles, 13,000 feet of elevation gain in 107 miles. It's in the Badlands. Tinker Juarez, who's a legend in the mountain biking world, has the course record, and it's 8 hours and 53 minutes. So that is a long day.
Look at that profile.
Yeah, it's just constant spikes. We'll post a link to this so then you guys can see it in the forum. But anyways, that's the race that he's targeting. He's working for it. He says that he's 5'10" and a half, and he weighs 147 pounds, so really similar body composition to me, you would think, based off those numbers. And he says that by summer's end, he's increased his FTP to 4.81 watts per kilogram. And he says that he wants to focus into marathon mountain bike racing. So he says next year his goal is to be at 5.25 watts per kilogram. And he wants to place in top 5 at the Mada Hey 100. So here's what he's saying. He wants to also drop down to 141. So his question, he's going to follow sweet spot base, sustain power build, and then specialty plans for marathon mountain bike racing. I'd say that if we got specific races that are mentioned in terms of questions, we get more questions about marathon mountain bike races than probably anything else. So it's a really common question. In most cases, I would say that if you're going to do something that's going to be like a long 107-mile day, that cross-country marathon would be a good choice for that. Mm-hmm. In this case, it's a pretty good fit, but he is going to have so much surging looking at this profile. Like, it is just endless jumps nonstop. Yeah. Would you change it up at all? What do you guys think? Constantly surgy for 107 miles.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't call it surgy because even though those look like spikes, they're still going to be long, long spikes. Mm-hmm. So there's not a huge difference between cross-country marathon and the Century Plan.
Yep.
Century Plan just has more sweet spot, and the cross-country marathon has more like time right above FTP.
Yep.
So I think for this one, you could go either way.
Yeah.
But I probably cross-country marathon.
Yeah.
But I'm just thinking like for Leadville, I would actually say instead of cross-country marathon, I would do the Century Plan because it's just 20-minute climbs like over and over and over again. And those are all going to be sweet spot when you're doing them for 10 hours.
Yep.
You could really go either way. And what I would do is I would look at the plan and see what actually there's a little more threshold too on Tuesdays for a cross-country marathon. Mm-hmm. But see what floats your boat.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that you might be a little cooked at some high-intensity stuff, and maybe you're going to want to do the Century one after the sustained power. Mm-hmm. But you go either way.
Yeah.
So I just looked at the Strava. So it looks like most of the climbs probably range somewhere between 2 and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So at least from my experience, albeit not that much, definitely for the first half, you'll be doing those climbs at threshold or above, mm-hmm. right? Like to stay with the group.
Yep.
That's where I think maybe mountain bike is going to prep you for the demands you're going to feel.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure everybody can weigh in, but the last half is just mental toughness, right? It's like
you're not going to be, your power output won't be what it was in the beginning.
So I think as long as the first half or first 50 miles doesn't fatigue you from going threshold or slightly over repeatedly, mm-hmm. then I think I'd lean marathon.
If there's 2-minute climbs and 3-minute climbs, totally do the marathon mountain bike. Mm-hmm. If it's 15, 20-minute only, like Leadville is, then I would totally do the Century one. Yeah. The Century Plan. Yeah. That's pretty much the cutout, like the difference.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I completely agree. I think that if you're going to be doing something like Oz Trails Off-Road, that's another really common one that people bring up. That's where I would actually consider cross-country Olympic.
I was going to say short track.
Yeah, because it's just like constant short climbs and it's constantly rolling.
Yeah.
The climbs aren't very long at all. But in this case, and in almost every case, I think cross-country marathon's a really good fit. And the reason, like Nate, you mentioned that spot where you're just above threshold like that, and that's super important with mountain biking because of the terrain or the surface. So many times you're just forced to ride above threshold. Like it or not, that's just what it is because the pitch changes so quickly. The pace might change so quickly, that sort of stuff. It's you have that on road, but it's much less variable, I guess.
You're forced into that pace on a mountain bike, right? Like whether it's terrain or technique or someone else messes up, like all of a sudden you have to do that or else you're going to be walking.
That's why recovery rides are kind of a silly concept on mountain bikes a lot of the time because it's so hard to actually ride under that level. The one thing I would say, though, is maybe consider, sustained power build is really good for, increasing your ability to ride at FTP for a long time. But for this case, I might consider general build just because if you have a lot of hits, general build will work a little bit more on the repeatability side, kind of maintaining a slightly higher percentage for a shorter period of time rather than a slightly lower and longer period of time.
If you went general build, then I could see you going Century. I could see them swapping each way.
Yeah.
There's bigger, the principles behind this are that oftentimes, and we get this question a lot, just because you're doing a mountain bike race doesn't mean like it fits exactly in this mountain bike category or a gravel race. You got to look at what kind of race is it really like? Like Leadville, it's not like a regular mountain bike race.
Yeah.
It is like a Century.
Yeah. Totally.
And this one isn't like Leadville. It looks like it's more punchy and more like a marathon one.
Yep.
A gravel race could be flat. It could be a whole bunch of climbing. You got to look at kind of what the course profile is. And what Pete just did is look up how long the climbs are on Strava. Mm-hmm. And that will tell you, if you look at those, what kind of energy systems you need to work. Mm-hmm. If all the segments that you're going to be on are 20 minutes, then you got to work your sweet spot, your threshold. If they're all going to be like 1-minute segments and there's a group aspect to it, then you want to do more VO2 max, some anaerobic work. You have to stay with the group.
Yeah.
And of course, it's never just one or the other. It's a mix.
And I would say the only thing you didn't touch on, John, is what type of rider you are, right? Like what's going to hold, where you think the difficulty lies in this race for you. And that's, again, where if it's the long sustained stuff, you're going to have to focus more on that. And if it's the short punchy stuff, like if your gravel race was just flat power the whole time, then you're going to feel the climbs a little more, right? And vice versa.
5.25. He has no weaknesses.
he's just an all-star.
And for those who knew, like that is an insane amount of power. Like most riders, you've never met someone at 5.25. Like you probably have never seen someone at like a legit 5.25.
It's extremely rare. And we got one question this week too that was complaining about the fact that we just mentioned high, watt kg, and it's certainly not intentional at all. It's just in this case, usually what we find is that people tend to have, where the nuanced answers go is where we go or where the nuanced questions go is where we go, right? Or somebody's looking for something that's specific that has good takeaways.
And you can learn from, I hope you learn from this question.
Totally.
As far as Trainer Road people go, this is self-reported weight and self-reported FTP. I think it's actually a little bit lower. But if you look at our distribution of riders, it's a perfect bell curve. Right around 3 watts per kilo is the average.
Exactly.
And then at 4 watts per kilo, it's about 4 watts and above is about 7%. And then 5, it's like 1%, 2%.
Yeah.
It's very I haven't looked lately, but it's very low. And that's too some people are lying lying. They are optimistic about their weight.
Incorrect information in their profile.
Or at some point they had a great FTP test last year, and they just are going to keep that there. Right?
They put their FTP, and then every ride they turn it down. So that data is probably even overstated. It hasn't been put down. So I've done even hilly. I'm a bigger guy. I've done hilly hill races. I've done hilly road races at like 3.8 watts per kilo, and beaten many people who say they're well in the fours.
4
right?
something,
well into the fours. So don't. I like it. Don't really compare it to other people as much as in. Just track it yourself and see if it improves, and then use the race to compare.
Exactly. Yeah, it matters how you compare to yourself.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. Great point. Next one is from Michael. He says, "Hi guys, I just broke my collarbone crashing in a crit."
No.
Michael is probably thinking about his body saying no. Yeah, like we said. He says these are, as we all know, very common injuries, and since Nate has experienced this somewhat recently, I was wondering if you could do a summary recap, takeaways from the rehab, how soon to return to training, how to best utilize Trainer Road, etc. Love the podcast and find it very inspirational.
Cool. So I broke mine in Chico, California at the road race there on a gravel section of the road section. Pretty dangerous race, I think.
Rider crashed in front of you.
Yep, and then the rider in front of that hit him, and I hit that.
You had nowhere to go.
I was third wheel.
Yeah.
I was trying to on this other echelon.
Yeah.
Anyways, I went there, and my first tip, if you do get your collarbone broken, is try to push for surgery, especially in a country that has health insurance.
Yes.
Or decent doctors.
Yeah. So I didn't have surgery at first, and they were letting me out of the ER, and then a doctor stopped me and goes, "Whoa, you can't walk out with that," because it was my bone was, they called it, I think this is the term, blanching, which means the bone was poking through the skin so much it was turning white.
Yeah.
And they're like, it could pierce in the middle of the night, and then you've got a big problem.
Yeah.
So I went back, and long story short, I ended up not getting surgery in Chico and came back to Reno. And it was really hard to do anything with a broken collarbone. And I had these, I have how many pieces it was, but it was enough where any way I moved, it really hurt. Some people, they get a clean break, and it really doesn't hurt at all. And you can, you put it in your sling, and you're pretty good to go after that. Yeah. When I got my surgery, you guys saw me the next day. I was like, I had it out of the sling. I was just walking around.
You were ready to go.
I was ready to go. So after the surgery, or if you had a clean break, I could actually train pretty quickly, a couple days.
This is what and that's what I've seen. I've seen a lot of broken collarbones,
sure.
and I've seen many people start training 2 days, 48 hours after it's broken.
But always on the trainer.
Always on the trainer.
Yeah, and I put my mountain bike on the trainer to get a more upright position.
Smart.
I started with a sling, but that was kind of annoying. And then I put it on, I put my hand on my handlebar. The doctor said that was fine. Just a light hand. One thing that somebody emailed me is that for some reason, the sweet spot and threshold hurt so bad. I don't know why, but incredibly, incredibly hard. So what I like to do is I would do aerobic rides and then some like shorter VO2 max, like Clouds Rest or Huffaker. And I don't know why, but it was easier. So that's another
interesting
tip.
Huh. So I guess for your side though, so you broke the collarbone, but then on top of that, you also, which is actually really common with this too, because so you also had a concussion, and when you hit the ground like that, a lot of the time when you break your collarbone, it's like a direct side impact into the ground, and when you do that, it whips your head, right? Yeah. And that's what causes in most cases the concussion isn't as much the impact, but the change in direction of how your head's moving.
I landed on my head, and then my shoulder took it.
Yeah,
so I had a bad concussion.
Yeah, and you were you were loopy from that.
Yeah, so and you have a concussion too. It's so important to let your concussion heal. My sports doctor, she told me that your second concussion, if you're still not recovered, your rate of death is 50%. And I went back later and I said, you mean 50% increase? And she's like, no, 1 in 2 chances of dying, which to me still blows my mind. Yeah. But I'm not going to test that theory.
Yeah, they say that, the concussions can be localized to a specific spot. And there's a bunch of varying thought on concussions because it's all emerging research and everything else. And if you get the same injury in the same spot, that it can, absolutely
1 in 2 to kill you.
Yeah.
So don't rush outside. I took the whole time to go outside. I think my first race back was Lost and Found, which is a gravel race, which is a horrible race to come back to after you've a
pretty rugged gravel race. It's not exactly
that year.
Not a normal one. Yeah.
But the idea is just look at it as great. This is the time to rebuild and to become really fast. Yeah. And if you focus on the indoors and really build your power up and not have stress. The next thing is you're building a bone, so you're going to have to eat a whole bunch more calories. Yeah. So this is not the time too. You're like, I'm training less. Don't use this time to lose weight.
Yeah.
Or even try to maintain. Just listen to your body, and you want to heal the bone quicker. Yeah. My bone actually healed slower. Like it was my doctor said the plate was fine, it was strong, but the actual filling in the bone took a good 6 months.
I remember that. Yeah, it took a long time. Yeah.
So I've read as much as 600 calories extra a day to heal bones, which is that's.
And I can confirm that that's it's pretty noted throughout all science that real injuries take a lot of extra energy to heal. So don't skimp. Always, if you gain 5 pounds but you're healed, think about that. That's so much better. You're healed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you can think of it too as you're overfueling all your workouts too. So
always going to feel good.
Yeah, you recover from everything. And the last thing is I lost a lot of upper body strength. Obviously, it's going to happen. Lifting weights felt really weird at first because you could feel when you were, especially if I was picking stuff up this way or doing dips, I could feel the bone wanting to escape my body.
I wouldn't like that.
No, that's not okay.
Again, and with that, it's just obviously build up. My doctor told me when I could do certain things, and he said, "Hey, you can do whatever you want now." So I just listened to him and did it, and it didn't snap. But I've had friends, I know you've had friends who come back too soon to that stuff and they re-snap it. Yep. You heard of that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I had a friend who broke his collarbone racing motocross. The next day, he came back and raced. He got surgery that day, came back the next day and raced, and then he ended up crashing. But because of the hardware being in place, it also ended up causing a pretty severe shoulder injury because he fell, had hardware where the brake was. It passed a lot of the stress to the shoulder, and because he fell on the same side. So
the hardware stay in?
No, hardware had to come out bent. But it was terrible.
Yeah, your collarbone is the weak point. That's what's supposed to break.
It's made to break.
It's made to break.
Yeah,
exactly. That's what I'm actually worried about now. You're right. It's like the circuit breaker.
Yeah.
So it absorbs the impact, cars have crumple zones.
Yeah.
And now that I have a plate, I'm like, it's going to go someplace else now because it's not made to be super, super
and
strong.
Yours
but
is
it's
pretty long. You have a plate that covers a large amount of your collarbone, whereas some people have a pretty small portion.
I have a large collarbone too.
Yeah.
I think it's a 7-inch plate maybe.
Holy cow. Yeah.
That's a big plate.
Yeah. Collarbones.
6, I don't know.
Collarbones are pretty rough. Michael, I hope that you're able to heal quickly from it. The biggest thing, I've come back from a ton of injuries, and patience is always the best choice. Always the best choice.
It was kind of fun because it was surprise, you have an off season.
Yeah.
And as long as you have to accept your situation. There's people in prison who don't accept they're in prison, right? And they're like, they fight it. But then when they accept it, hey, I can learn a new skill or something. Same thing. You're in cycling prison.
Cycling prison,
And you've had your broken collarbone. Just accept it and be like, okay, off season now. I'm going to replan my season, and I'm going to use this to do a great build. Really, you didn't lose much fitness.
No.
Yeah.
Now you just have a forced off season. So use it wisely.
And small victories. Think about every time you everything is a success, right? Imagine where you were two days before and a week before and all that.
And it doesn't have to be physical ones. It's just the fact that you actually slept through the whole night without getting up.
Yeah.
Victory one, right? Like it's take your time.
Okay, more tips. First, you in Trainer Road, do a season for your broken collarbone so you can actually get PRs.
Yeah.
Because I said you're going to lose a lot of fitness, but you're not going to be doing the exact same power too.
Yeah.
Second tip is I slept on the couch for a very long time, sleeping upright because you can't lay on your side. That like shifts it.
Yeah.
So I had a couch that had a little bit of a recline. That really helped. I got one of those beds that like moved.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, I hate those things. Because what happens is the pillow, especially how tall I am, it falls behind the bed.
Yeah.
It's way worse. So
stuck.
don't be tempted, at least for me, to get a hospital bed. For me, I could still sit up and just put pillows behind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's way cheaper than those beds that move. I actually have it unplugged now. I don't even use it. It just sits there. If anyone wants one,
let's get into Marty's question. He says, I've recently heard that the idea of a proper pedaling technique, and he says that in quotes, is now considered passé, and the idea is like, and once again in quotes, feel like you're scraping the mud off the bottom of your shoes, or pull up from the bottom of the stroke, are no longer popular. Yet I see these concepts still showing up in the instructions and some of the workouts that you guys have on Trainer Road. Is there in fact a consensus regarding pedaling technique, or are there still great differences of opinion on the matter? I talked to Coach Chad, made sure that he wanted to relay specifics on this one, and I have them marked down in the head on this, so I can share those. But Nate, you seem eager.
I want to. This fires me up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then we'll see. Maybe Chad will contradict everything that I said.
I've got an idea too. So let's see what we all do.
So there are different. We're talking about different things here. I remember when I did my first bike fit in 2006. I drove to San Francisco because I wanted a proper bike fit. I went to the best place I could find. And the guy did a bike fit. It was horrible. I couldn't, I could literally stay on the saddle for 10 seconds because it hurt so bad. And then he put me on a CompuTrainer, and he goes, the CompuTrainer has a spin scan, and it can measure how smooth your pedal stroke is. And he says, the best guys can do this where it says 100, meaning you have the same power output for the whole stroke. And he was like, that's the best ones. That's not true. That's not how you should ride.
Yes.
They've done lots of studies on this. It's that first quadrant, like the quad dominant downstroke is where you get most of the power.
Yep.
That is, you shouldn't try to ride in a full perfect circle.
Perfectly smooth. It's not efficient.
Okay, so that's one side, and that is I think that's what Marty, you probably hear is you don't want to have the 100 spin scan, and that's why we don't do any type of spin scan in Trainer Road because we don't want you to have a smooth one like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's another side to it where you're just knocking around, where there's an idea of a supple pedal stroke, or when you have to actually turn, when you're pushing down, you don't want to keep pushing down. There's a time where you stop pushing down and start pulling back a little bit.
Yep.
You don't pull back at the same power as pushing down.
Right.
Then you still are de-weighting your feet a little bit. You're not pulling up the same way, but you're having this higher efficiency of having a smooth, supple pedal stroke, but still having a more power in that first quadrant by a ton.
Totally.
You see this by pro riders. You just look at them and you look at someone who hasn't ridden a lot.
Yeah.
You can see the difference right there.
Yep.
And that is what we're going after. Now, please contradict me.
No.
What Chad said.
It's like you channeled Chad.
Yeah.
That very thing. I think that where people there's a smooth pedal stroke, and then there's something that goes a little bit deeper into how the power is distributed throughout. Sure, if you're smoother than just a person that's just jumped on a bike, you'll probably be a bit smoother in terms of how it's distributed. But as a cyclist, and especially with the workout text that we have, the main goal is to look at the time that you have while you're doing these workouts and to maximize the efficiency of that time. Mm-hmm. So rather than just sitting and spinning, we look at that as an opportunity to have you start to focus on things, because here's something that absolutely everybody can agree on. If you've cycled for any portion of time, you have at certain times gone, wow, my knee's knocking now. Or I've become really unstable as I pedal. Like
Yeah,
I
for
start
sure.
to bounce. Like it happens. Like we get bad habits, and so what that does is that gives you a time to focus in on those bad habits, and then just try to recalibrate and smooth things out again. So then you're not knocking, you're not putting excessive stress on your joints, you're not shifting your sit bones constantly, you're not placing your weight incorrectly on the bike. There's a lot of efficiency to be grabbed in that respect. But yeah, don't try to put even power out around 360 degrees of the pedal stroke. That's silly.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think there's these kind of pedaling technique things are different than like souplesse, right? And that's someone who has a pretty pedal stroke. But I think it's the efficiency that matters, and it's like keeping everything engaged. And Chad's doing friendly reminders that keep you in line and keep you conscious of what you're pedaling. And I think that's the important part. And everybody has to do that all the time. Like your pedal stroke degrades all the time. So if you're not constantly shoring things up, it's going to get worse, right? Like,
especially as you get tired. My son, who's 5 on Saturday, is learning how to ride a bike, and he will lose the pedals because he tries to pedal so quickly. And I swear, some of you adults, if you weren't clipped in,
you would
lose
same.
the pedals.
I would do that. I can't.
Every
As you
once in a
pedal
while,
really
ride on
quickly.
flats with your dress shoes and then see what you do. Like it's kind of shocking, like how easy it is to slip off.
Yeah.
If you get like flats that are like really sticky ones with like sticky shoes, then yeah, it's darn near like being clipped in. But another thing, you mentioned souplesse and that beautiful pedaling format. I think of like Tom Bonin, like when he pedals, there was nothing wrong with that ever. Like it just looked so smooth, right? His heels weren't excessively dropped, his toes weren't excessively pointed. But that stuff is very much like that's a lot of that is personal preference. Like Nate, you ride more heels up than I do, heels up, toes down than I do. But it isn't incorrect. It's if it's excessive, maybe where you're like dragging, your maybe your heels all the way down to the ground and it's dropped really low, or maybe it's like pointed so much that you're getting calf cramps. That's obviously problematic.
Right. And the last point of souplesse is like everybody's different. So Nate has a pretty pedal stroke and you have a pretty pedal stroke, but they're not the same.
Totally
right?
different.
And they work for both of you.
Can you define that, because people have never heard it before?
Souplesse?
Yeah.
I think what it means is you can tell that there's a strong, efficient pedal stroke that looks like you're getting the most out of the pedaling around your pedal stroke. So the idea,
I think of it as a beautiful pedal stroke.
It's a beautiful pedal stroke.
Yeah.
And that's one has to do with practice and having a correct bike fit and pedaling hard. When someone's pedaling hard, it looks prettier, and when someone's pedaling efficiently, it looks prettier. So as long as you're keeping those in mind, and like I always think of pistons, right? Like your legs should be pistons. Like everything should be lined up, everything should be pedaling down, and everything should be engaged. And like one of Chad's ones that I always do is pull my belly button into the back of my spine.
Yep.
And I can tell as soon as I do that, it tightens it removes all the slack from my system. And then all of a sudden I'm pedaling correctly.
Yeah.
So that's my cue that I use for myself, because that's what's lacking is if I don't have that part, there's slack in my system.
Like that.
I notice one for me, and everybody will have different
Everyone
ones.
will have different ones.
One of the things that I have is that I find that I actually will start to ride with my pelvis shifted to one side when I'm riding, just slightly, if I'm like pushing really hard. And I think it's because I carry a lot of tension through the quadriceps and through the hamstrings and glutes at the same time, and I start to pull more on one side because I'm not balanced. None of us are perfectly balanced. And I start to do that. So one of the things that I've been thinking of that really helps is I think of like my kneecap basically just going forward and coming back and going forward and coming back. Like rather than thinking of even my kneecap going up and down. Doesn't mean that I'm physically moving it back and forth. What it does is it helps me engage the muscles, I feel like, in a more, I guess, shared manner that isn't overlapping as much, and then everything seems to smooth out. And that'll change. In a month, I bet it'll be something different.
Exactly.
But that's kind of how it works. The Velominati, as everybody knows, they say souplesse is the perfect storm of looking pro, harmony between grace and power, casual and deliberate. So, and you can see that in certain, like I think another guy, Brad Wiggins, had like an incredible pedal stroke, right? Yeah. He always looks so calm.
The last thing I want to say about this is it's neuromuscular learning that you're doing here, and that's also what we do. We pedal at different cadences. We do spin-ups on some of them. Spin-ups are the best case where you think like you're a good pedaler, then you try to do at 120 or 130.
Fall apart.
Yeah, exactly, right? And really it's the same shape, but how quickly is your body good at has it really been trained to do that shape at a high speed?
Yeah.
And though you see track cyclists, they practice this a ton, and they can do it really well.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean like it's going to add 20 watts to your FTP or anything like that. But it also can, I think, prevent injury and just help you be a better bike rider. And if you do get in those situations where you need to go fast or you need to go slow, you can, or if you're cramping, you ever been in that situation where you're cramping?
Totally.
You're like, now I am only pulling up.
Yep, I've got to change my pedaling technique now. Yep.
It's just a good skill to have. And the last part is it helps pass the time, which is also fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely does. And I think that for people that ride cyclocross or mountain biking or even gravel, but you have to be comfortable at pedaling. Your pedal stroke needs to operate somewhat in isolation of variables because you have so many variables that are constantly changing. So you really have to have that thing down solid. So then when you have all of these things that are forcing you to pedal way too fast or way too slow or pedal not anchored on your saddle because you're going over really bumpy stuff, you have to have it sorted.
Product idea.
Yeah.
I want a smart trainer that you can put in, quote, mountain bike mode, where it just slips all the time.
Slips.
Because
Slips a little bit.
Because when you're a roadie and you go to mountain bike and you first start to slip, as soon as you slip once, you're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, you unclip. Like, it's over.
Because that's what we're used to on road. As soon as you lose traction,
you're about
it's
to
over,
die.
right? Yeah.
Shane, who we took on his first, or
one of our engineers. Yeah.
Shane, one of the designers, and he came on a ride, and he was on flats, and he hadn't ridden mountain bikes, especially in the mountains, since he lives in Florida. He started slipping, and he was like, how can you possibly deal with that? And I go, well, you just don't pedal as hard. And so the thought that there is you can pedal not as hard as you have to, that's
another case where having a pedal stroke or being able to pedal at different quadrants would be beneficial. When you're low traction, sand also. Yeah, you have to go. Sometimes too, you get stuck in the wrong gear, and you suddenly have to go really slowly, and you have to pull up and do a 360 pedal stroke, and it does have to be the 100 spin scan.
I want to cover a misnomer here. So like Cadell Evans came from mountain biking, came into road, right? And it's Jean-Christophe Perrault and like a number of different athletes have done that, right? So when they come over, and you hear Phil and Paul talk about he's bouncing like a mountain biker. Like they always say that because Cadell had a super bobby upper body, right? That's just how it works. If you look, mountain bikers are very good at separating their upper and lower body, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, the reason they're bobbing like that, it's not like intentional, but it's a habit that they build, and it can be excessive for sure. But it's a habit that they build because what they're doing is they're applying more pressure into that rear tire and it's timed so that's where the peak torque is, so then they can have better traction.
Oh, I knew that.
So it's not like intentional, but that's what develops when you're working on those steep slopes like
exactly. So if you I bet you do it naturally, where if you're climbing something super steep, when you get to the right part of the pedal stroke, you'll lean forward to so and then lean forward and then lean back and lean forward.
And it's more like a pressure of like kind of like down and
up
almost.
Like into your hub rather than up.
Exactly. It's not like you're going up and down. It's not like you're going back and forward. It's like this diagonal plane that basically you're applying pressure so that more of it goes into the tire.
That seems so hard to do, to think about it. Like
it is.
I don't think I could think about it.
Yeah, exactly. But it's natural.
I bet your body can do it naturally.
Yep. And I think that's something that you see with like top riders. They can still be really smooth. Like Jeff Kabush is a really smooth pedaler, for example, but he still does this. And that's because they're strategically doing that. So road riders, quit making fun of mountain bikers for bouncing. They're just much more dynamic than you. So not really. But yeah, it's a technique. It absolutely is. It's not just, circumstantial. John's question. This one has your name all over it, Pete.
Okay.
A lot of Johns this week.
Yeah.
I promise I didn't do it on purpose. It says, hi guys, great podcast. I've come to it late, so working on my way through the back catalog, and it's really great stuff. Glad you're enjoying it, John. He says, I have a quick question about road and crit racing, especially with the road racing. I find myself tiring towards the end of races and not having anything in the tank for the final sprint. I'm going to point out one key thing that he said. He has a question about crit and road races, but he says especially in the road races. Mm-hmm. Road races are generally longer than in terms of duration than what you have with the crit. So keep that in mind. Consequently, I'm always finishing at the back of the leading pack. I don't feel like I'm doing anything particularly spectacular during the race, a couple of attacks, that kind of thing, and I initially put this down to strength or fitness. He says it could still be the case, but I've noticed a lot of the posted average power outputs of the other riders are up to 40 watts less than mine during the race, even though many are heavier than me. That's frustrating, right?
Yeah.
He says, I'd expect different power from different power meters, but perhaps not by that much. I'm thinking it's to do with the fact I'm riding inefficiently during the race and wearing myself out. Have you got any tips around riding to conserve energy in watts during a road race or a crit?
So, Pete, this is going to be all over you, but I'm going to say just scientifically, if they're heavier than you and they're putting out, and the power meters are both good, and there's like multiple people, and it's really 40 watts less, yes, it's all strategy and handling.
Yeah, and
like,
it doesn't have to be...
That's huge, 40 watts? Oh, my goodness.
Where I find, like, a beginner has low-hanging fruit because they're throwing out huge attacks.
Mm-hmm.
But then you become smart enough to know that that's just not a good choice.
Right.
And then at some point, you start to refine everything in between, and it's more subtler refinements. But that's what I notice whenever I ride with the Cliff team. I'm just like, gosh, like this, everyone else is just like having a conversation. And I know at times I'm like, I'm probably close to as fit as these guys, but I'm feeling worked. And it's because you guys are so good at, I think, it's not just the big attacks, but it's everything in between.
Yeah.
Are there tips that you've used for this?
Yeah, so I would say, there's, one big takeaway that applies to everybody, whether how fit you are or not. The difference between sprinting at the end is usually only one. I mean, it's such a small difference, right? Being at the tail end of the sprint or being able to sprint is a small shift, right? Like that's only a couple % difference. Like you need one more attack. Yeah. And so a good example is like in the off season, if you can get closer and closer, if you can get 5 seconds of sprinting and then blowing up, that's so much closer than just hanging on the tail end of the group. So work on, that's going to be your gauge, I'm imagining. The closer you can get to being part of the sprint, the closer you are to that efficiency we're looking for. One of the things that the attacks, the only reason you ever attack is to win, right? Like, the only reason you attack is it's harder for everybody else than it is for you at that point, right? Like you're making everyone else use more energy than you are at that point. So attacking is frivolous almost all the time.
Yep.
If you can roll off the front without ever pedaling hard, then that's a perfect attack. If you can coast off the front, that's even better.
Which you somehow do.
But the idea is that you never work harder than anyone else. You're always working less hard to do more, to get more distance. Until you do.
Yeah.
And then you work as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah. That's what, when he said like he's nothing spectacular, a couple attacks. When I do an attack, like again, I'm trying to win.
Yeah.
So it takes a ton out of me. And you kind of said like 2 attacks. If I could take back those 2 all-out efforts of 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, that would totally make me fresh enough to be in a different spot in the end of the sprint.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Pete, I've seen you guys do this though. Sometimes you do like feeler attacks. Are those all out or like? Go to youtube.com/trainerroad and you can see crit analysis where you're doing this sort of thing.
Yeah. My favorite way is, like I was saying, where you coast off the front or you have momentum. So you're already spending the same amount of energy you would have to stay in the group, but you're getting off the front. And the idea is that's setting someone else to have to do work to bring you back or to come up to you, and then you've gotten free distance from the field.
Mm-hmm. So to say it another way, spots of the course where the field naturally slows down, or after like a pre-lap it naturally slows down. And what you're doing is you kind of swing out, you take the wider turn, and you just keep going at the same level.
Yeah.
And then everyone else thinks it's in it, or maybe you're going a little bit harder, but just not an all-out attack.
Yeah.
Everyone else freaks out. People bridge up to you. Then when they get to you, you shake your elbow, and they start pulling you.
Yeah.
So you really haven't done a lot of work.
Brilliant.
But then they're going to start pulling you around. And then if there's a gap, that's when you really go.
Yeah, and the idea is that if you're already working, maintaining that same pace is so little work. Like if you're doing 300 watts for 1 minute versus 1 minute and 5 seconds, and you get a gap for doing 5 more seconds, that's totally worth it. Yeah. And the same thing happens where if you're on the ropes and you're tired, you can do the same thing into the back of the field, or kind of filter your way through the back of the road race. Like if there's a hill that's exceptionally hard for you, or a crosswindy section that's not that long where you can't get gapped off, what you can do is you can start in the front of the field and pedal slightly less hard and kind of drift back. I would imagine if you really are doing 40 watts more than everybody else, you're probably at the lead. You're making the decisions for the group, which always takes more power. So if you're steering the group, or if you're initiating pace changes and things like that, you're going to do 50 or 100% more power to get the shift of the race.
Yeah, I always see some people, and they're always at the front leading especially in a crit.
Oh,
like
yeah.
Leading the peloton.
And that's a natural tendency for me. There's I think it's so on the bike and off the bike, I tend to fill leadership vacuums, right? And I want, if there's a lack of leadership, I'll take it up. But you have to remind yourself off the bike and on the bike that things will work out. But especially on the bike, the race is still going to form. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be the one that depicts it, unless you know that you have an advantage and you want the race to unfold in a specific way that you genuinely know that you have a very, very good chance.
Or you're riding for someone else.
Yeah, sure. Maybe you're doing that, or maybe you're just like Coach Chad always says with C priority races, maybe consider them a great opportunity to get in a workout, right? So you do attack as hard as you can, but the goal isn't to win. In this case, this guy's goal is to win. Right?
The C race, it'd be like, I did 40 more watts than anyone else. I won.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I did 40 more watts.
Yep. But in this case, so something I want to share, perhaps just it's perhaps semantics, but it's a perspective shift on attacks. Really, when you create an attack, you just create a speed differential, a difference in speed between the pack and you. And you don't have to change your speed.
Yeah.
If the pack changes its speed, then it's effective. And that's a huge thing to think about. If you have a circuit race or a crit, then you will become familiar with an ebb and flow of a race and a pack on how they perform on that. Or if it's a road race, maybe you can figure out the course and kind of understand. But that's one thing that I noticed. Pete, you do a ton of moving from the back to the front, but I never see you doing it by throwing some sort of huge effort just to get to the front from the back. Yeah. Usually it's you in the back, and then suddenly you're way off the front. Yeah. And then when you come back, you don't sit around there and wait at the front. It's pretty, I think it's just different. There's we race with so much stress, a lot of us, that something is going to go and we're not going to make it. And we're so afraid to do that, to let that go.
Yeah. So there's two takeaways. The person who's steering the race is always doing more work. So if you can let someone else steer the race or initiate the changes and things like that, that's all the better. If you never actually do an attack yourself, but you follow someone's attack, you probably have 3 more attacks in you now, or twice as many, let's say. Mm-hmm. With the ebbing and flowing, I have 1 speed pretty much, right?
Fast.
Which is pretty hard. I like to go pretty hard. I don't like to go as hard as I can, and I don't like to go easy, right? Easy benefits other people, and going really hard benefits other people. Those aren't my skill set. So what I do is I generally keep it in that pretty hard zone. So if that means I tail off to the back, that means I never had to go that hard. And if I'm going off the front, that means we're going easy enough that I can increase the pace. Because I would much rather go threshold. Really my goal is if a crit is at threshold for me exactly for the whole race, that's probably I'm going to perform the best and have the best chance of success. Mm-hmm. So I'm turning that race into my own mini, mitigating all the damage that would happen to me by going slower, by going fast, by changing the race without ever doing any extra work. Yeah. If that makes sense.
That does make sense. How do you know, so if someone attacks, and if you can get on their wheel, obviously you're going to have a huge advantage. Mm-hmm. How do you know, we talk about this a lot. We've talked about it for strategies for me and stuff. You're if you can just get everyone to have 3 seconds of waiting, you'll have such a big gap, and they're going to have to. So it's physics. Okay, let's have physics lessons here. Yeah. So the person who attacks, obviously they're going to have to overcome wind resistance, right? Mm-hmm. But if you can get a few seconds up the road, anyone who has to bridge up to you, until they get in your draft, they actually have to overcome more because their speed has to be higher than your speed.
Correct.
So if you can get a little bit of a gap, you're actually causing people to work harder than you to catch up with you.
Yes. And it's very important to remember that.
Yep. Yeah.
Because when you're the person that has launched the attack and people are bridging up to you, your mind starts to tell you things like, oh, they're just faster than you, they're coming up, and it's, you're not going fast enough. But the fact is, remember that they are working harder to catch you.
A good example of that is when the race is really, really, really hard, don't attack. right? Like save it. And as soon as you feel the race giving up, that's when you do 5 more seconds or 10 more seconds. So like
it won't feel easy at that point. It's gone from really, really, really hard to really hard.
Yeah, and it's still really hard. And what you did is if Nate is surfing the front wheels and the local guys are hammering, and we do a preem lap, and then right before it slows down, Nate goes, and everybody's tired. So everybody's fatigued. No one actually wants to do anything. If Nate just keeps going 500 watts for 5 more seconds, he got the 3 seconds, and all of a sudden someone is 50 feet back. They have to work twice as hard to catch Nate, and we're already tired. So Nate just did the perfect like culmination of multiple things in a row to get the gap. People still have to work really hard to catch you, and everybody's fatigued. So
in that situation, what I'm hoping for is that because they're tired, they look at each other.
Yeah, and they will.
Yep. So what I've done too in some races is someone attacks, and I'm never the second person. What I wait is I think this person's not going to solo. And then when someone else, this is what happens in the local ones always. Someone attacks, 3 seconds later, someone else decides to go, then someone follows them, and then I can easily get inside this draft of like 2 people, and I get pulled right up.
Yep.
And then you're doing such little work. But I have missed the break before because that person goes up, or maybe it's 2 people that go up really hard, and then no one else goes, and I'm like, ugh, I'm out of it. How do you know when to... Like when you hear the sound, when you just go, because you kind of almost have to hear it. You got to react really fast.
There's 2 things to take away. I think if you miss the instantaneous response, save it, right? Like you're not going to overpower. You're never going to like do more work and catch the person if you didn't instantly respond. So every half a second or quarter second, you've just exponentially increased the amount of power to catch someone. So I think if you have the chance and you do see it happen, it's a good opportunity to just roll with it. Yeah, it's a little more power, but you didn't miss it. And if someone else comes along, you're setting yourself up for more success. And if everybody else comes along, that's okay. You don't pull through. If you miss it, or if it's a half a second, there's usually at the local races, there's 1 or 2 people that are always going to chase. So then you look at them and you can tell if they're swinging out or adjusting. Just be ready, right? And you can anticipate what they're going to do. And if the last piece is, depending on who it is, sometimes you don't need to worry, right? Sometimes you're like, oh, I get to rest for the next 5 minutes as they're off the front.
A couple thoughts on this. When I'm in a group like this, and I know that it's like a criterium, there's going to be attacking and somebody hasn't gone off the front, I pick the wheels I follow, and I get onto the people that I always know will attack and try to chase on. Because it's not necessarily, I don't want to be on the wheel of the person that's going to be in the breakaway, because everybody wants to be on that wheel. But instead, I want to be on the wheel of the person that's going to chase extremely hard, maybe get 90% of the way there, and then I know I can bridge that gap. But when I'm on that person's wheel, I position myself so that they have plenty of room. I don't block them in. I want to make them, give them the absolute best chance so that they can chase this. I don't want to give them any hesitation. So it's a key thing, and you know certain riders will always try to chase. So in that case, if you're stacked on their wheel, echelon slightly like that.
Yeah, don't block them.
Yeah, don't block them. Give them just enough room so that they can get out and chase that move.
Do you guys ever go get him?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, totally.
All the time.
Go get him.
And one last thing is, if there's multiple people, depending on the race, there's someone who's more whose attributes mimic yours closer than the other. So like locally, like if Aaron Rindy is going to bridge and Steve Thompson's going to bridge, I'm going to follow Steve because Steve works with my physiology better. It's going to be less of an aggressive chase and more of a diesel to get across. So I'll probably, it's more work for me to follow Aaron and then be tired and get to the break than risk it and stay with Steve or stay with someone else who's a little more, or I'd rather do it myself than follow Aaron probably.
So for those who don't know those names, this is something else down on the list that we wrote is you have to feel the draft. And Pete, Aaron Rindy is a small guy.
Yeah.
Small climber, right? 5'8", maybe 5'9".
Probably 5'10".
Yeah,
but 130 pounds.
Yeah, very skinny. Yeah.
Or if you were to follow me at 6'6", I'm like 190 right now. But that would be a better draft. And that's just the idea that you'd save a lot more if you're going with me, or if you're going to follow my attack, there'd be a bigger draft to go on.
And one last thing is, it takes a little bit of practice, but you can tell when someone's going to make the effort to bridge or attack. And what you can do is you can kind of wind up into their draft. So like if Nate if Nate's looking, trying to figure out who's going to bridge, and then in 2 more seconds he realizes that no one is going to go and he has to go because it's 2 people, what I'll try to do is purposely wind myself up so I'm going a couple miles an hour faster, running into the back of Nate, and hope that or try to time it so he attacks and I've already accelerated easily and run into the back of Nate to catch his ride up to the break.
Because that initial snap that you do, you're using valuable creatine phosphate stores.
Yep.
You're doing the type of thing that causes a ton of stress on muscle fibers and basically makes it so that you're not as good of a sprinter later on, and it really knocks it out of you.
And Pete's a big boy, so accelerating takes more energy.
Takes more energy.
Exactly. Yeah. Another thing that I want to say is I try to find smooth wheels whenever possible, and you'll start to figure out who that is when you race with a consistent group, or if you aren't racing with a consistent group, it's really easy to do, actually. I feel like the best way to do is just look at a person's demeanor, and when you find a relaxed person in a group, in almost every case, they're going to be smoother than a person that's tense. The way that I try to ascertain if a person is relaxed or tense is, and you should always be doing this anyway, don't look at the wheel in front of you. Don't even look at the saddle in front of you. I keep my eyesight up so that I'm seeing the shoulders and back of the person, right, and over their shoulders. Not only is that safe because you can see things coming up, but how a person carries their shoulders says everything about how tense they are on that bike. And when you find a person that's much more relaxed on the bike like that, it's going to mean that you have a smoother ride. You can ride closer to their wheel and be much more comfortable. Because if you drop back, inches, and we're actually going to be talking to, I guess we should drop this now, we're going to be talking to the folks at Specialized all about aerodynamic gains, and we'll be talking about group dynamics and how that changes. We'll be doing that in December. And we'll have a forum post where you guys can send in your questions that you want to ask them all about wind tunnels and aerodynamic stuff. But when you drop just a few inches back, it does make a pretty big difference, and you start to feel it. But above, you may be able to stay in the draft effectively. But when you're a few inches back and he starts moving, then perhaps you're in a spot where you're actually going to be falling out of the draft slightly more. Maybe more of your shoulder is falling out of it because, you're just a little bit further back and disconnected from it. And that sort of thing makes a difference. I think of riders that I race with sometimes, and they're just so efficient moving through the group, and they're so calm riding behind a person. And that's what you really want to be. If anything, think about this, John. You may be in a situation where you're carrying so much, mental stress because you want to. It sounds like you're the type of guy that wants to make it in the final sprint. So if that's the case, you're carrying so much mental stress that even that can really fatigue you and slow your decision making and get you into a situation where you're just, you're becoming progressively more fatigued because your mind is so tense as well. So it's a calm person is an efficient person in a group.
Yeah, and lastly, I think you should decide whether you want to wait for the sprint or you want to attack. If you're going to wait for the sprint, you want it, we call it an armchair ride, where you do absolutely nothing until the last 300 meters of the race.
Super boring.
Super boring. As boring as it could possibly be. And that includes corners should be no brakes, right?
Yep.
You should not be pedaling and no braking. Drafts, you should always be as close as possible. And whether that's right on, if your front wheel's an inch away from the derailleur, but that's where the draft is. If you really want to sprint, that's the difference between you winning the sprint and you getting fifth or something like that.
It's almost like it's a gamble, right? Because you're you're not going to, if you want to win the sprint, unless you're super, super strong or a higher level of fitness than everyone else, you don't chase anything down.
Yeah.
You just chill the entire time.
Yeah.
Some people can do that where they can chase everything down, but then they're going to win no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And then if you want to win on the breakaway, then you do that, and don't be mad then when you lose on the sprint.
Yeah.
Because if you've done 2 big attacks and you can't win on the sprint, that's because you did 2 big attacks.
Yeah, that means you did your attacks correctly.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're in the right category.
Yeah, and you're in the right category.
For my size, I'm a decent sprinter, but even at local races, I don't bank on that. I don't ever think that, I'm going to go into this sprint and win. In almost every case, if I would have to have a lot of people not there to have any confidence in that sort of strategy.
A lot.
So to your point, maybe reconsider the strategy too. Maybe, John, you're better at actually going, 1K to go, 2K to go, and trying to bank off that.
Another thing I want to say is that he said it was longer for road races. Don't overlook nutrition or hydration. It was longer than 60 minutes.
Totally.
When you're racing, you never feel thirsty, you never feel hungry. But and sometimes it can be hard to eat and drink during a race. But do a gel 15 minutes before if you're not doing that. And you could also do a gel inside of the race.
Totally. It makes such a big difference.
Yeah, and then if you're using water, I would use an electrolyte mix. I mean, I wouldn't be going for the 400 calories an hour because you're going probably pretty intense. But if it is a longer road race, if it's 2 hours, 3 hours, like
Pack
then
it
you
in.
are. I would be eating a lot. And if you could make it, it sounds like these aren't breakaways. He said the leading pack.
Yeah.
That it's more of a nutrition war where people are coming off,
Things are getting
coming
split
off.
up. But it's not like, breaks, small breaks that are happening.
So
Don't overlook nutrition, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, even if you're going in a breakaway, the whole thing you should think about is it should be boring until it's not.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be this whole thing is fun and I'm going kind of mid-hard. It's nothing, and then all out for the win.
Totally. Let's go into David's question.
Cool.
He says, longtime listener and relatively long-term user at this stage. 5 stars to the podcast app, forum, and calendar. Sweet.
Nice.
He's got them all. He says, although you've never read my question on the podcast, so I'm tempted to knock stars off for Jonathan. Oh. Well, hey. Checkmate, buddy.
Next question.
So he says, here's the TLDR version of what he wrote in. He says, I'm currently following the sweet spot-based mid-volume plans. I try to swap the Saturday ride for an outdoor ride, usually group, sometimes mountain biking, on weeks where I will be riding indoors on a Saturday. I generally have similar time available as I do for my usual 100-kilometer plus club spin. Even with 2.5 hours inside, I'm still getting brownie points for being around more than I would be. He says, so from a training perspective, can I swap the 90-minute sweet spot based workout for a longer endurance/tempo workout from, for example, the traditional base plans? So he's has extra time to work out on these Saturdays.
So I can answer this. I can channel Coach Chad because originally they were like these super long aerobic rides. And then we looked at compliance for the training plans and nobody wanted to do them. So if you look at the week description, they actually says that on those days, you can switch it for an aerobic ride outside or for a more traditional based longer ride if you want to.
Totally.
A lot of people don't want to go 3.5, 4 hours on a trainer.
It's hard.
Inside. Yeah, it's hard to do. So do those ones outside. But if you do sweet spot too for a little bit less time, you can get similar adaptions besides the part of it's there's a good overlap. Some things you can't get, which is the really long slow twitch muscle fatigue that you have to do these really long rides, and you can kind of do depleted and accelerate a little bit, but in general there's only one way to do it. But yeah, that's totally doable and totally like air quotes Chad approved, Coach Chad approved.
Totally. Can I
toss a lot of people do it.
Yeah. Can I toss in a couple of things on this?
No. Next question. He's going to give you 4 stars, dude.
I know, right? So something I'm thinking of with this, though. So you mentioned the fact that like the depletion that comes from the long rides. I hear somebody going like, well, that's why I want to do 100 miles because I'm going to do Leadville. So I want to do Leadville beforehand. So I want to get that sort of, the muscle cell signaling at that level, and I want to do that sort of thing. Number one, take it from me, that is not very fun to do. Depleted rides where you're trying to accelerate that. It just makes the ride miserable. But number two, the thing is, you don't have to, we're not saying that you have to mimic the distance of whatever race that you have. You don't have to do that. And something that I found is that if you keep up on nutrition, you're able to fend off perhaps a lot of the effects that you would have otherwise of that, because you're not depriving your cells of what they need, right?
I just posted about this in the forum, and I used hypothetical power, but in general, like, so Leadville, I did it basically only on 2-hour sweet spot workouts. And I went 8:51 or 2 or something like that. So it's a long race.
Sub 9.
But there's 2 different ways you could approach it. One is, yes, I want to do all these long, slow rides to be able to ride at a higher percent of my FTP for that long time, right? Or the other way is I'm going to raise my FTP, ride at a slightly lower percent of it, but it's actually going to be higher than if I would have done these really long rides.
Exactly.
So I'm going to actually have a higher wattage output, but it's going to be a lower percentage of my FTP, if that makes sense.
Yep.
So really going into Leadville, I'm going to ride at 210 instead of 200. And I don't have to spend these like 5, 6, 7 hour outdoor rides. And that's why that's a hard point for people to get through their mind. If you try to ride at the same percentage, you can have a disaster day.
Totally.
Because you're not used to it. But if you ride a little bit less, you don't fatigue as quickly. but your actual wattage is higher. So, and then all your other racing that you do is going to love that higher FTP, and it's not going to care about that 5, 6, 7 hour, those 7 hour rides that you do.
Not at all.
That can't be repeated enough. Like that is the basis for how lots of fast people do things is get a higher FTP and ride at a higher percentage. Or lower percentage rather.
Lower percentage
of a higher FTP.
So it's actually more watts.
It's more watts. It translates to everything. Every single thing you do on a bike is benefited by that.
But if you're at, say, 5.25 and you're close to your genetic potential, there's probably 3 people listening that have this, then there's no room. There's no headroom, right? And then you could do those longer rides and really fine-tune it. But for the majority of you that are at 3 watts per kilo, or even 4, like just keep raising it, keep going up,
just keep going up,
and then everything is better.
Everything is better.
Yes,
every single
your whole
thing.
life is better.
Yes,
you don't have more time.
Your significant other isn't going to be so mad at you because you're not doing these long races or these long rides. They take less time to recover from. Less wear and tear, less chance to get hit by a car. You're out there for 7 hours. Like
every moment this is scary, but I always think of that. I think of like the time that I have that I'm basically putting myself at risk.
Well, mountain biking is a good reason.
That's why I like it. That and gravel.
You can still get hurt mountain biking, but it's the deaths are usually because people are doing crazy stuff.
Yeah, you don't have cars to deal with.
You can be on the road. I don't want to scare people. Know this. You can be on the road, do everything right. Rhonda Yeager here. She got hit by a Hummer. She was in the bike lane, fully kitted up, all the stuff she needed. Hummer just was on their cell phone and hit you. So I'm saying is spend probably just mountain bike. That's what I'm saying.
Just ride mountain bikes, everybody.
Get your FTP up and ride mountain bikes. Done.
That was bordering very close on a discussion that we've been preparing for quite some time that has been asked for in the forum. But we'll touch on that later. But the same principles are operative on that. So
anyways, you can do it.
Oh, totally. Absolutely.
The other nice thing, I think riding in a group is always safer because I think it's much easier for cars to see you when you're a big group of people.
Yes.
And although they might get more annoyed at you, I feel like they see you.
One thing can I add to that? If you're with a group, it's always safer to stick together as a group. I know that there may be a person in your group that wants to be a hero and stretch things out, and then you basically have this like trail of tears going on down the road where it's just like scattered riders. Nothing makes a driver more upset than when he thinks that he got by a group of cyclists or a couple cyclists and he has more and more and more and more. And it's pretty dangerous and it just drives up the aggression. And it's their fault. I'm not saying that but the fact is, this is kind of like one of those things you can be dead wrong or dead right. You know what I mean? So
my dad would always say that.
Yeah. Like I know that you're probably saying, well, the driver shouldn't get upset at us. Well, the fact is they will. And you have to account for that. I always find it's much safer to have that group be very tightly together rather than spread out on the road. So if you're in a group and you have any sort of influence on that, please try to ask your group to stick together. It just makes things safer. So, The one thing I want to add to this too, the original question here, is that I'm known for doing longer rides on the weekends, but my longer rides aren't crazy long most of the time. Like I might do a handful of 6-hour rides, but not very many. Much more often it's 3 hours, something like that on the weekend. And it's 3 hours of, it's still quality work, but then during the week I'm keeping it shorter like that. So I know that you're probably thinking of it in terms of, in this case, David, you're like, I have extra time. I can fill it with training, and you totally can. But just because you have that extra time doesn't mean that it's, if you take advantage of it, it's really going to kick the can very much further down the road. And especially if you're dropping the intensity low enough that it's really not doing quite as much. So I might argue even, just David, throwing it in there as an alternative, if you do have extra time, maybe you spend that time, the time that you had training, you do that sweet spot workout or that slightly higher intensity workout, then spend the other time doing something like core exercises, something like PT, working on your bike. Heaven knows we all need to do that, right? Spending time with your family, doing other things around the house to get you brownie points instead of just being on the bike the whole time.
Nutrition. Right.
Exactly. Maybe spending that time to cook a proper dinner, right? Yep. There's so many other things that you can do that can make you faster.
I like to do the longer stuff as part of a race because then it's less motivation. It goes into the next question. It takes me less motivation and mental energy to do that.
Totally.
Like if I have a 4-hour race, it's a lot easier than a 4-hour.
Totally. Training ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it always gets done. You never stop in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. You can't stop.
And it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
So it can make a long ride fun as putting into a race.
Yep. And then you just don't take that race seriously. Remember, it's a C race, not an A race or something.
And you can practice and say, oh, I'm going to ride this percentage FTP. How do I feel after this many hours of this percentage of FTP? And you can say, oh, that was too high or too low, and you can fine tune it from there.
Absolutely. The next question is from Dana. She says, how do you deal with mental burnout? I've seen your blog that a mounting physical fatigue can cause physical burnout, but I just have no desire to train anymore. I had a series of crappy races. I DNF'd a marathon after twisting and tearing an ankle. Ooh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah.
Then had to scale back other races due to bad weather. I used Trainer Road for a century ride this year, and the race day went way better than it ever would have if I hadn't used Trainer Road. Good to hear. I finished hours ahead of other people who typically drop me in group rides, but the wind was 30 to 40 miles an hour and the fight was hard to even stay upright. I'm so tired of mentally grinding my way through bad weather. How do you deal with getting back on the bike a month later? So she says, I know it's not a physical issue, but I need to find a way to make cycling fun again. Do I switch to mountain biking for a year and hope for the best? And then she also asks, how long did it take Nate to bounce back from Leadville?
Still trying.
Podcast. Yeah.
So Leadville probably like 2 months, but so I did CIM, California National Marathon. It's like Folsom to Sacramento a few years ago, and it was like 30, 40 mile per hour winds, raining. It was a point to point, so it was literally a headwind the whole time. The amount of mental energy that bad weather races take out of you is insane.
Yes.
Like, I have a personal feeling, how you guys feel about this, but you only have so much mental energy per season. And if you do big races, so long races are more mental energy. Short races, not much at all. And then if it's bad weather, it's like twice or 3 times the mental energy. And then And then if there's a bonk or something like an injury then
it's really hard.
Then it can be even more.
And poor performances also.
Yeah, right.
Use up a
poor
lot.
performances suck it out of you.
They suck it.
It just takes it out. So
hard.
I can see why Dana is like not feeling it.
Yeah,
right?
Totally. It's and first of all, don't feel like that you're doing something wrong or that you've screwed up or that you have a problem because you feel the lack of motivation. For riders that never seem to struggle with motivation, they're probably just projecting outwardly something very different than the actual reality. It's tough. Like,
I would say I run out of motivation every July. Like come 4th of July, if I'm not running out of motivation, that's never happened. So I run out of motivation every single year.
You're thinking about next season come July.
Yeah. And that's and here's the deal. Like we always talk about taking your training and we separate the training into the 3 phases of base, build, and specialty, right? And you follow those. It's like 28 weeks of training. Physically, you'll get to a peak within that. But on top of that, it's probably a good chance, like we get a lot of people talking about, can I just repeat and just never stop? And like, sure. But chances are you're going to get to a point where you mentally need a break and you need to regain motivation. And that's something that's really tough for a lot of people, especially as we're getting more and more of these kind of like one-off bucket list races. You know, local racing is starting to drop down more around the country in terms of like, you know, a regular season of racing. And then you're getting more of these like random events. They're all competing with space. So we basically have year round now. We have these big races that you could do and a lot of pressure to do them. It can be a really tough spot to be in. So number one, Dana, you don't have anything that's like, don't feel alone or don't feel like you're doing something wrong. It's totally normal. One thing that I've found, at least, and Nate, I like how you said I'll just tell everybody to ride a mountain bike. Yeah, it does help. One thing that I've found is that I need to step completely away for a short period of time. And it doesn't have to be long, and that'll change all the time. It might be a couple weeks. It might be a month. Having 4 weeks off for injury was entirely too long for me. It was very hard. But having time off, maybe you do need 4 months off. Take time off and don't feel bad about taking that time off. Because us cyclists are really good at it. As soon as we have time off, we break our collarbone, we get sick. And we're really good at just like feeling like, okay, I need to get back into things and take some time to just completely set back and not feel bad about being away from it.
Dana, too, for my motivation, and Chad is probably the same way. I know it is. He is. It's based on the type of racing. Like last year we did some long stuff. Now, like if you told me you're going to do Leadville again next year, start training, I would be just like ho-hum, super depressed. But just this conversation we had today, I kept thinking, oh, man, the Tuesday night crits that don't take any mental energy, last 45 minutes, those sound really fun. I get to do a lot of them. So, Dana, my advice to you is to do like instead of marathons, 5Ks. Like try to get a minute off your 5K PR. If you do want to start mountain biking, that's great. But don't do the if you do Carson City off-road, do the shortest version.
Sure.
And because it's super fun. We've talked about it a lot, but don't feel like you have to do the century, the marathon. You always have to do the epic distance.
Yes.
Do the shorter distance until you do a lot of shorter distances, and then you start to think of, Leadville does sound good again, or marathon does sound good again. So if you think about the different types of racing, maybe cross sounds really good to you. Think of what sounds good rather than pigeonholing yourself into these longer epic races.
Yeah.
I know some people recommend like get some new equipment or get a new bike, and I don't like that approach. I feel like sure, it'll motivate you temporarily, but that will wane because your bike will no longer be new after it's not new.
You could always just buy a new bike.
Sure, keep going, right?
Just another one.
Probably not a great habit to have. So I think that I steer away from that, and I steer away, I would steer you toward finding things that are much more like intrinsic and things that you can actually manage. And for me, I know this sounds like super touchy-feely, but I just love spending time in the mountains and getting away. And that's like
it's true.
It's Nate knows.
Yeah.
But it fully recharges me and it rebalances me. It helps me kind of get perspective on things. And I don't know, it might be going to a bookstore and just spending a lot of time at a bookstore, or it might be, I don't know clue what it is. Spending a lot of time in the kitchen and cooking, whatever it might be. Everybody probably has something that drives them back to center.
Do you get that, what he has, where you just go in the mountains and you feel recharged? Because I get none of that. Like,
Nate gets none of it.
I never
at all.
stop and take pictures and go, oh, I just feel so majestic.
Yeah. I'm probably somewhere in between you guys. I love mountain biking in the off season. It's probably my favorite bicycle riding I do all season. Yeah. But I don't crave, it doesn't dry, like if I miss it for a month or two in the spring, I'm sad, but it's not like I have a hole in my heart.
What do you do to remotivate yourself? Because you've had long seasons where you're like racing crit after crit after crit, where you travel and these crits are so competitive that you get beat down all the time.
You never win.
So how do you do it?
I'm pretty lucky. I think my teammates motivate me, right? So we have a new guy on the team, at least one new guy on the team, Joe Lewis, and he's like a stud. He's fast. And so knowing this year, I have a double whammy. I have the 24 Hours of Old Pueblo, which like I want to be fast for.
That'd be fun.
Right? Like that's
you're going to be fast.
I'm going to be fast. I can already feel like that's some real motivation because it's something I've never done before. It's going to be fun. Like it's a fun event, and it's with you guys, which is also fun.
Lots of people are watching.
Thanks,
yeah, right? Yeah. And so that's a perfect kickoff. So that'll get me through the off season, right? Like that's February 17th or 15th or whatever. So that's exactly enough to make me train hard through the off season. But I also, like with having new fast guys on the team, it's harder and harder. Now we're sort of laughing. There's one spot for like most races that isn't guaranteed. So how do you have to be fast and in shape and motivated and everything to be part of that last spot, and traveling is the fun part about big crits. So
so join a team is kind of is maybe the
that's mine. Yeah, I love my teammates, right? Like I love hanging out with them. I love talking to them. We have a great time. We have great conversations in the off season that motivate us, in text messages or on Slack or whatever. And so that's my main motivation, and working here is pretty fun too.
Join a cycling training company.
Yes. So
and that can be hard too. For sure. Yeah.
Can you talk about how, like, what Cliff Bar's accomplishments were last season? Because you guys have been on a lot, and
we haven't talked about it a whole lot.
We joke that some people are like, "Oh, who are these guys?" Can you say what you guys did this year?
Yeah. So we won the U.S. So there's kind of there used to be two different realms of U.S. criterium racing. The PRT, or the Pro Road Tour or something, it kind of has fizzled out. So the main focus we've had is the USA Crits, which is a nationwide, I think it's like 13 or 12 races. What we ended up doing is we won the team overall. We won the lap leader, which is most time spent off the front pretty much. And we got second, third, and fifth, I think, overall.
So you dominated.
We dominated.
And you almost got first.
We almost got first.
There was one race you guys didn't go to. Is that right?
Yeah, we didn't click over into doing all the races. We skipped a couple early season ones, which it's hard to place your bets in February. But I think if we would have done those, it would have shaken out differently. But yeah, it was much more. This is the first year where we were the dominant force in the races, which is really cool. And it's been a long organic growth. Like we used to do the travel races and hope for a top 10 and or top 20s and things like that, and hope for the lap leaders jersey. Like I had one race where I missed the lap leaders jersey and it was like soul crushing. And now they had it the whole season, right? Yeah. So we have a lot of really standout guys. Kevin and Connor Mullervy are super fast. Zach's super fast. Now we have Joe. Owen Gillett is another. We just have strong guys across the board. So what the nice part is with USA Crits is now next year we'll do them all.
Sweet.
And we'll have Nate at team camp again because
I haven't committed to that. Last time it got me really sick too.
Can I go to team camp?
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. I want to be there.
Yeah, it's just such a fun. It's a lots of camaraderie on the team and a lot of fast guys. Yeah, it's just a blast.
The difference is there are plenty of teams with fast people, but in that team, everyone's on the same wavelength and they're supportive and they're kind. So if you're struggling with motivation, you want to find a team to help you. Yeah, I feel like that's the most important part is don't just join the team that's super cutthroat. Join the team that aligns. If you're super cutthroat, maybe that helps, but join the team that aligns with whatever your goals are.
The type of rider you are is the type of team you want to join, and you see a lot of people join teams that aren't exactly right for them, but they think it is for some reason, and that guarantees burnout. You watch people just cycle through this cycling.
Yeah.
Hey,
good dad joke.
My point is, you guys are legit, and you have like one spot that doesn't have someone that's. When you say one open spot, you mean the other people, they are so good that they're like the Tom Brady on the team. Yeah. Like they're going to get on the team no matter what.
We have 5 Tom Bradys, and there's 14 of us. So that means 8 of us or 9 of us are fighting for one spot for most travel races.
Do you ever have a B team where like another part goes to another race?
So this year we did. We finally split up some teams, and so I wouldn't really call them B races, but they were less they're still national caliber races, but we like everybody racing, and everybody does a good job. Everybody's fast. We're splitting hairs for that 6th spot. So people can still have successful races at these B tier events. This year we're working on some plans, but a lot of the like big California races, we're going to try to be more of a presence. And some of like the Oklahoma Classic is before Tulsa, but Tulsa's the big deal, but OKC is another really important race. So doing a lot more of that where there's more spread for the whole team showing up.
Nice. People can cheer for you guys.
I know.
Is there going to be a crit the day after team camp again?
No, not this year. Okay. It's on Monday. It's the day we fly back from Old Pueblo.
Got it. I'm excited for team camp. Cliff Team Camp's the best one. Last question is from Liz. She asks, she says, I am a triathlete and race Ironman full distance with the hope of someday qualifying for Kona. Heck yeah, Liz. Way to go. That's got to be the ultimate accomplishment, man. I still, that race gives me chills thinking about it all the time. So I've only ridden secondhand bikes that I have gotten a good deal on from people who are no longer using them. When I race, I am top of the swim, then I lose time on the bike, and then run back up in the standings. I'm usually just off the podium, and it seems like I lose too much time on the bike compared to the other racers just ahead of me. I have a great coach, power meter, and I'm working hard on improving my cycling fitness. She mentions that she swam and ran as a kid, so it makes sense that those are stronger for her. My question is that my tri-bike, it's a 2004 Felt, it's carbon, weighs 23.6 pounds with no water on it, just the bike. Which for people that I guess aren't following that, even though you see pro tour bikes being just under 16 pounds, and TT bikes are almost always heavier, but 23.6 pounds is a heavy TT bike.
It's a heavy bike.
So she says, I only do hilly Ironmans with about 6,000 to 8,000 feet of climbing. A friend has offered to sell me a road bike on another good deal. It's a Cannondale, and it weighs 15 pounds. I could set it up with good aero bars, but it might not be as aerodynamic as the TT bike that I have. So depending on who you ask, my tri-bike with all the aeroness is better even though it is heavy. Others tell me the weight is hindering me more. So, should I stay with Felt or go light with the Cannondale road bike, which will get me the best gains on the bike? I, of course, will work on fitness, form, and technique to get as fast as possible. She mentions that she's 5 feet 5 inches and 126 pounds. So a small person for certain in that case. Okay, so I guess with all of that in there, it's interesting to think about this, and this is something that I use. You can use Best Bike Split for. I feel like that is really helpful.
I did.
Yeah.
So on Best Bike Split,
you're reading ahead, aren't you?
I am. Yeah, believe it or not. Thanks for ruining it though, Nate. But Best Bike Split allows you to enter like really specific parameters about your setup. So you could say like, I have a non-aero bike. It's just a standard road bike, and I have this depth wheels, and I have this, a TT helmet or just a normal road helmet. And then you can really figure things out, which is really helpful. And because this question is something that I feel like perhaps triathletes don't consider enough, and they maybe should.
Depends on the level of triathlete
and the of course the course,
the experience. Well, it really doesn't depend on the course.
Ooh.
It's going to unless it is a net elevation gain where you are going to, like, sometimes they do it. It's not usually Ironman. I don't think I've ever seen it. I don't think I've ever seen it for Ironman where like you end at a higher portion than when a higher elevation than you started.
It'd have to be like a point to point in that case.
Yep.
Very rare.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. That it's always going to be that TT bike is going to be faster. So I did some stuff. I put in Coeur d'Alene, which is I did the 2017 course, which is pretty hilly. Maybe not as hilly as she's talking about, but still same principles apply. For me, I put in my CDA from when we did our testing. I put in my weight at 187, maybe 2 pounds heavier, but it's lighter than I am. But anyways.
As long as it's consistent.
Yep. So that puts me at 223 watts. That puts me at a 458.56. And then what you can do is there's this slider, and I made it where if I lost 10 pounds. So that's even more than what she specified.
That would be dropping down to a 13-pound bike, which no.
And imagine, so on a hilly race.
They exist, but it's probably not a good idea.
How much would you save? 2 minutes and 55 seconds.
Not much.
Not much at all. So
for
you
10
think
pounds.
Exactly, for 10 pounds.
That's a lot of weight to lose.
That's a lot of weight.
Yeah, almost 3 minutes over a 5-hour race, and that's not much, right? And now, what if I were to gain 10 watts? So with the same weight as I was starting at, 187, but if I were to gain 10 watts, I would save 5 minutes and 33 seconds. And the reason why I chose 10 watts is because just from a road bike that is like a round tube road bike to an air road bike, right in there, you could save 10 watts.
Yep.
And that's not even thinking about all the way down to a TT bike.
Because with the TT bike, your position change is so severe that changes. That's the majority of the reduction in most cases, it seems.
Let's assume that she can get the exact same fit on both bikes. But that is a huge benefit of a TT bike if you need to get lower. But on a TT bike, it can be more than 10 watts. Like a super bike, depending on what you were before, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking the 20 to 30 watt realm of like aerodynamic improvements that you can have over a round tube road bike. Because round tube road bikes are not aero at all.
Yep.
So to get that same lightweight time, so if I were to lose 10 pounds, let's say I just want to do that through watts, I'd have to gain 6 watts. That being said, I don't like a 15-pound road bike sounds really fun. I would buy that still and train on it.
Sure.
And I would have both
Could be
bikes.
fun.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, having a nice light road bike is fun.
Yeah, that can be kind of complex to have two different bikes for plenty of folks.
She didn't mention wheels at all. I don't even want to open the can of worms, but wheels are a big help.
Totally.
Yeah.
One thing that I would add to this too is you're a light rider, and when you're going in sections where it's like slightly downhill, because like Nate said, this is a round trip course where you end at the same spot. So anything you climb up, you'll also go down in that elevation. You may do that slightly differently. It may not be as steep or something like that, but it really helps, especially if you're a lighter rider. Any bit of weight you can have going downhill is really helpful.
Yeah, you gain it on the way back.
Yeah.
You're overcoming wind resistance because you're going faster, but you make up a lot of it.
I have to work so hard, and plenty of other racers that we have in the local races, we have to work so hard to stay in Pete's draft when he's coasting going downhill. So it's really like it even though I know that and we always do that, we focus on the climbs because that's when it hurts the most. But on the back side of this is where you're really going to get an advantage with a slightly heavier bike. I know that sounds crazy, but
more aero bike.
Yes, right? Yes, exactly. More advantageous. So the weight, instead of thinking of the weight as a problem, really the whole point is you should be looking at aerodynamics is going to be the most important thing. And then in this case, the weight can actually help you coming downhill.
Well, I said here it's not as big a disadvantage as you think.
No, yeah.
I think for the TT bikes, you buy the shape, you don't buy the weight. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, Cervelo now, their P2 and their P3 is the exact same frame. The only difference is the P3 has higher end components. And you don't really need the lighter components. That is so on a triathlon, like splitting hairs.
Totally.
You can get a little bit heavier bike, but just get the aerodynamic benefits. And when you're spending money, first thing you do is you buy aero bars and you get in your position. Then you get a aero helmet. And then you upgrade your skin suit to be tight and aerodynamic. And then after that, you look at hopefully you've already done this, but hydration placement. And then wheels. And you can get a disc cover in the back. Flow is also very affordable, high quality wheels you can get.
Yep.
And then
proven to be fast ones.
Yep. And then you do the bike. So since she already has a TT bike, I'd be looking at all those other things first. Just the jersey alone, you have to buy one anyways. Spend the extra, it could be even $100, but the watts you can save that I've seen from a slow jersey to a fast jersey could be 20 watts, which is insane, the amount. I think the Aero Coach tri-suit is super fast.
Yes.
People are using that. You can, maybe No Pins has a one too, but you can look online to see what it is. Don't just get your normal club fit jersey.
Totally.
That is a very, very bad decision.
Yep.
If you want to qualify for Kona at least.
So you can do a ton of things to kind of cancel out that weight disadvantage that you may see that you have.
And tires, and then wax your chain. Wax your chain's actually pretty cheap. You got to buy tires anyways. Buy better rolling resistance tires. We've talked about a lot. There's so many things that I would not worry about the weight, especially for a time trial.
Yep, I agree with that. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. And if you're listening to this podcast, you'll be getting another podcast next week. And we really appreciate you listening and sharing with other cyclists and triathletes. If you're with us live on the live stream right now, stick with us, and we'll go through the questions that you've submitted on the forum, on YouTube, on Facebook, and we'll answer some of those questions. We'll talk to you all next week. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Delayed, Pete.
Okay, I'm going to go to YouTube. Nate, do you want to go to Facebook?
We call it trainer hair.
Trainer, yeah.
Trainer road. The hairs, we get different hairs today.
Yeah, we do. We get those hair jokes, quite a lot of them.
Somehow.
They're just jelly.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Man, lots of questions today. Pete, you're going to the forum? We'll have all three focused. I don't see
it, though.
You'll be able to find it in there. We get a lot of things posted.
Oh, there it is.
All right. You got one?
Yeah, I got one.
Go ahead.
Alvin asks, I just bought a brand new Allay disc crit bike for next year's race season. The stock DT R470 wheels it came with are tubeless ready. However, they arrive with tubes installed in the wheels. In terms of reliability, do you recommend running tubeless or going tubed during a crit race?
Tubeless is supposed to be faster, and during a race, flats don't really matter, assuming it doesn't cause a crash. I would say err on the side of tubeless because it's a safer flat. If you do flat your tubeless tire, it's not a blowout like a tube. It's supposed to be faster, and I think tubeless tires are as grippy as anything now. So run them tubeless. It's more work initially. Last year I didn't flat once on tubeless tires and then I flatted 6 times this fall, so I made up for it.
Yeah. I think he might be asking too. Is he's worried that he might roll the tube off?
But they're tubeless ready wheels, did he say?
Yeah.
If they're tubeless ready wheels and you have the tube on there and you have a tire that's tubeless ready, you do not have to worry about that at all.
So I want to hear you guys run really low pressure. Mm-hmm. You're big guys and you rail the corners. Mm-hmm. So can you kind of say what pressures you're running and how hard you're hitting these things?
I weigh about 200 pounds, give or take. I usually run 75 or 80, depending on the course. A lot of the races we do are pretty bad pavement, so that's enough where I could hit cracks and bad pavement and not flat, not have to worry about it. And then you're hitting the corners at 30 or 35. I've never gone fast enough through a corner that I've rolled anything. I've never burped a tire. I've never done any of that, and I used to run latex tubes, and I liked the way that felt also. I would say the feeling wise, tubeless feels about the same as latex personally. So I've never had a problem, and everybody else on the team, I'm not gonna say most people run tubeless. I've never seen us burp a tire or have any problems.
What wheels are you doing?
NV 7/8 or 4.5s. I think this year we're all swapping the 7/8s. I think.
So that means that you're on 19 millimeter internal width, which is not as wide as the most, the you see some getting extremely wide, but 19 is still pretty darn wide for what we usually use.
And we run 25s across the board.
Yep. Which is, I think, the best aerodynamic profile for that wheel.
Yep.
Which makes sense. I think that it's, I can understand people's hesitations on running tubeless, and you think that a tube isn't, or that not having a tube is going to cause it to not be as stable. But as long as you're running decent pressure, you're not running like 30 PSI or 40 PSI or something, you're going to love it. It's going to be great.
And it is a safer flat. Like if you flat a tubeless, it's never catastrophic.
It usually leaks out slower.
Yeah.
Which is nice. Rather than a tube, a lot of the time just kaboom, it goes. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so Jesse says, can you go into a little detail on how two cyclists, Quintana and Cavendish, for instance, who are around the same size and weight, but please explain why one of them is such a superior climber compared to the other? So it comes down to, in my mind, genetics and the training, right? Those two things. And they try to take advantage of their genetics with their training. So Quintana probably is much more akin, and even the way he races, which is much more consistent. It's less like, he's not like a Contador with just attacking constantly. Chances are he's the type of athlete that has a whole lot of, the slower twitch fibers that's just carrying on with those really good long efforts. Cavendish, on the other hand, I bet he's just a little ball of fast twitch, being a athlete that has an incredible snap. That's like one of his best attributes that he has.
Yeah, it's kind of polar opposite. Like Quintana always attacks early and does the whole climb at his own pace.
Yep.
If he's ever carrying till the end, he gets beaten.
Yep.
Right. So he never waits till the last 300 meters. So he purposely plays to his strengths and attacks with 10 or 20 minutes or 5 minutes left on the climb. Yep. And Cavendish is the polar opposite. Right.
Cavendish's FTP is nowhere near what Quintana's is.
I'm sure it isn't. But then if you look down at his 10-second power, 15-second power, it's probably just entirely different.
And he's very savvy, I would say.
Very.
That we talk about like doing less power. Yeah. And even though, because I think we've seen these power numbers before, and they're not crazy, like 1,300 watt sprints.
Yeah.
Like, what? So there's a combination between skills, genetics, and just that's the way you've trained forever.
Yeah, because anybody can train to be an effective sprinter within a certain, realm, and anybody can train to be an effective climber within a certain realm. At that level, you're really talking about you need genetics and the best training in the world to be able to capitalize and be successful, right? It's the pointy end of all races. But the interesting thing with this that you can think about too is the fact that a lot of it has to do with the mindset of these two riders too. I'm sure that Quintana probably the last thing he wants to do is to bump shoulders in the sprint going really fast. Whereas I know for a fact that Cavendish does not like going through mountains, as we found out this year when we were at the Tour of California and saw how angry he was going over one of the top of the climbs. But it's just totally different focuses. So it's what you've trained for and what your body and mind lends itself to, I think. Those two things.
Kind of a similar question. So when two riders have similar FTPs but are completely different riders, sprinter versus climber, should they train differently? That's from Nate. I'd argue that if they have the same FTP, they should really climb the same, and the sprinter has a huge advantage over that person because they can also sprint.
Yes.
Yeah. But if you're not genetically, some people just identify as sprinters. Yes, you do more sprinting than climbing. Sprinting's a lot of neuromuscular. I guess we have power. It's having your brain the ability to recruit massive amounts of muscle and then do that, and there's like coordination that has to happen.
Totally.
And you need to do that a lot, and it goes away pretty quickly. So you have to train it a lot. Pete, can you walk us through sprinting?
Yeah.
This is going to be a treat.
All right.
Okay.
So, and one thing to cover here, Pete's been talking about how the fact that he doesn't want to leave things up to a sprint, but Pete could probably outsprint all of us listening to this. But relatively speaking, he usually competes with a higher crowd. So even though he says he doesn't look for sprinting, he still knows what he's doing on a sprint.
And you got taught by Who was the teacher of this?
He was some Kiwi track guy that now I'm totally blanking. I went to a sprint clinic when I was a Cat 4 or 5, and it was...
That's a total Cat 4 move
yeah,
right there.
Yeah, right? Like, of course I want to go to a sprint clinic. And one of the best, the Kiwi guy, I'll always remember this, he would start with cock your wrists. And so, like, that's, when you grab the bars, you always... engage everything. So the idea is when you grab your bars to sprint, you're going to start with engaging your total upper body. So a lot of people do kind of flimsy sprints, we call them, or noodly, where the only thing you're worried about is pedaling as hard as you can into your bike.
Yeah.
And that's pedaling into your bike rather than pedaling your bike forward. Mm-hmm. So if you can kind of think, the biggest problem that most people have is not setting like a concrete foundation to sprint from. We took Brandon out now it was this summer, but to teach him how to sprint because he's a spindly climber that weighs 130 pounds and has a 5 watts per kilo. But he just didn't know how to sprint, which was the problem. Not that he couldn't sprint, he didn't know how. Yeah. And so getting the foundation so that when you are pedaling as hard as you can into your bike is the important part, right? You have to pedal your bike with the intention of pedaling it forward.
And I know that sounds silly, but it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. So there's kind of a couple, everybody's a little different. Everybody's bikes are a little different. The two big things that kind of can position yourself, a lot of people have problems with their back wheels coming up or on too much weight one direction or the other. So what I think the easiest way is if you grab your handlebars, bring your elbows out and cock your wrists like the Kiwi said. Mm-hmm. And what that does is as soon as you do that, it's the same. You want to pull your handlebars together or bend them like if you were bending a 2x4 or something, right? Or
the Superman, when you bend the steel.
The steel. So if you're bending your bars into themselves, that's recruiting your shoulders and your chest. And he called it the power circle. And what that is between your handlebars, your arms, and your chest, you have a total connection of a powerful circle that you're staring straight down at your stem and everything's kind of tilted forward and in line. Mm-hmm. So if you think of yourself as being vertically... your circle is closer to vertical above your handlebars, then that's going to put you in the correct position so you're not going to pull your back wheel off the ground. The second point is you want the back of your thighs to brush the nose of your saddle. So when you are sprinting, your saddle should swing back and forth and almost brush the back of your thighs. And between that kind of tilt, that should put you in the proper position to have the right place to pedal hard. That's going to fix almost a lot of people's problems with sprinting is they're either too Cavendish and they try to put their nose on the stem. I'm not going to say whether Caleb Ewan and Cavendish's position is better. It doesn't work for me. And I think it doesn't work for most people. But if you create that powerful circle, bend your handlebars into your frame and have your bike swing. So this is the part Nate was talking about that has skill. You need to pull your opposing hand into your, let's see. So if you're pedaling your left leg down, you want to pull your right hand into your pedal stroke. Yep. So what that does is that swings the bike from side to side and pulls more power into your pedal stroke. So not only are you just pedaling down as hard as you can, you're also pulling your bike into your downward pedal stroke. Yep. So that's where the power circle comes in.
You do that while you're all locked out.
And you do it while you're
back too.
Yeah. So everything's engaged, and the idea is a lot of people should try where you sprint as hard as you can for a second or two. It's the same as a high cadence where you know how you can do it for a second or two and then you just lose everything. Same with sprinting. Start with 2 or 3 or 5 pedal strokes and then give up. Like you don't want to learn bad behavior. Yeah. So when you really are trying as hard as you can and everything's lined up and you pull really hard, do 2 or 3 or 4 pedal strokes and then back it off.
Yeah. Can I add one thing to this too that I found that's helped me with keeping the back wheel down? I find that a lot of people when they sprint, I was part of this too, you keep your pelvis and your hips high. Mm-hmm. And the reason you do that is because you feel like you're getting the most power when your leg is like fully extended, or you feel like you're not quite getting enough. And it can also be hard to generate power when you're more, crouched like that in that position. But when you do that, a lot of the time, subconsciously, when you let your hips go high, it does put that weight further forward than you realize. And you might even not move your shoulders. Like you're basically you're just raising your hips, and that goes further toward the center of mass of everything there. So keeping your hips somewhat low is something that I see really, like you and everybody else. When you sprint, it's not like your legs are fully extended and you're sprinting from that position. You're slightly crouched.
Yeah, everything's kind of wound up. Like if you think of winding yourself up to really sprint, the other thing is also practice that same position, not full gas or not as hard as you can go. Do some form sprints where you're doing 300 or 500 watts or something and feel the way that feels and get a slow connection where it's not going as hard as you can, and you can kind of work both ends of the sprint. You work the easy form sprint, and you should do lots of form, like 20 and 30 second, where it takes a lot of mental energy to hold yourself in that sprint position, but you're not doing a lot of power. And then at the same time, you do a lot of power for a short period of time, and between those two is kind of what marries the sprint.
Do you ever do those form sprints before crit, like while warming up?
Yeah. I like that a lot, and I think it's something that when you have to sprint, there's never a race where you don't have to sprint. I mean, well, not for everybody, but it only benefits if you do any type of road racing or crits or anything, you're going to have to sprint eventually.
Yeah, I keep wanting to, every year I'm like, this year I'm going to learn how to sprint better, like, and focus on it. Because if there's some people who do focus on it and they become the sprinter, but I'd love to throw it in once a week, kind of outdoor sprints, not for too long, just to get that neuromuscular.
I feel like it familiarizes yourself with how your bike behaves in varying circumstances a lot too. Like, it makes you a more comfortable rider.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but what I want to do too, though, is I still don't want to do the mass sprints, but I like to win breakaways. And if I was with 3 people, it'd be great to know, at least have the confidence that I know how to sprint and I have a chance every time.
Exactly.
Well, and I guess that my point is, if you learn how to sprint, it's going to make you a more comfortable rider. And you're just going to be more comfortable on your bike, period.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, it's because you're learning to stretch your capacity with your bike in terms of what you're willing to do with it for positioning and all that stuff. Ian says that Pete is like a hipster version of Chad. Good to know. Let's see. Diego says...
you know what it is? We went out in Reno. It's the hipster lumberjack. That is so hot in Reno. Everyone looks like a lumberjack.
There are a lot of those.
That's a lot of them. Yep. Okay, so Rohit says, I hope that's how you say your name. Beginner cyclist here, training for my first 70.3 in 6 to 8 months. This may be a stupid question, but what metrics should I focus on when training to build stamina and speed on the bike? Watts, RPM, or mile per hour? Absolutely watts, especially if you have a power meter. That's definitely the way to do it. Especially when you're talking about triathlon, it's just so helpful. You can figure things out with nutrition better or energy expenditure. It's just all the way through. Speed totally varies depending on the course or on the day. RPM, same. You'll see people suggest different cadence suggestions, and usually we tend to recommend somewhere around 85 to 95, but there are total outliers, and you should familiarize yourself with power output at different cadences beyond that. Let's see.
Here's a good question from Joey. Sorry, guys, for the question off subject. None of it's off subject. But I was wondering to hear from each of you guys if you've ever had to deal with fear of entering a race because you were afraid of how bad you were going to do. I've never raced, but I want to throw myself into it next year. Until then, I'm currently in the middle of a sweet spot training on Trainer Road and getting myself prepared for next year. I'm currently 43 years old, 206 muscular build, similar to Pete, and relatively new to riding, 3 years. I feel like I need to drop down to 185 to compete realistically. I don't want to just finish, but I want to podium. Any tips for getting over the fear of failure? By racing, I mean cross-country endurance, mountain bike races. Thanks, guys, for everything you do in the podcast, the videos, and work. It's all good.
I think the biggest thing for me is, so fear of failure, setting the right goal. Because if you set the wrong goal, then you're just going to be setting yourself up for failure. And then you end up, it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it tends to cause a whole lot of concern. Setting goals that are well within your capabilities, but also stretch you and push you to do something that's a little bit perhaps out of your current realm of experience or capacity. I think that's the first thing that I think of with that.
It's hard for me. This has never been – I would always rather do the race and fail and then know what I have to work on. So I would always rather throw myself in. Like Nate and I, we got second to last and last. We flip-flop on who got last in our first race.
Let's just call it me.
But no,
we came in together.
Yeah, we came in together. But you can't know until you do it. So that's
Yeah.
I can't train for something that I've never done. I can't understand what the racing is without ever doing it. So I would just race as soon as possible, and then if you get it doesn't. I mean, you can't set yourself up for success without doing it.
It's highly unlikely that you'll podium on your first race,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what category.
Yeah.
It depends on how many trainer plans you go through and what category you started. But really, like for triathlons, the rule of thumb is like expect last place in your first triathlon because it's so hard to string all three together.
Oh,
You
yeah.
always have people like they look at it and they look at the winning times. They're like, I've ran that pace once for 2 minutes, and I could probably hold it after I swim and bike.
Yeah.
Putting all together, the race tactics, it's like, who cares how well you do? Like, how many times have you? So you're very high. You guys are both very high racers. You probably always did well. You've done well. You never get last place.
No.
I've gotten last
I've gotten last too.
many times, even in real races.
You get dropped in a road race, like moving up a category, and then you get dropped right away, and you just ride the whole thing by yourself. That's no fun.
Yeah.
Like you saying, like it's happened to you.
Oh, it's happened. Yeah.
Like
it
your
has
first day
happened.
riding. What
Yeah,
race
come
did you
on.
get dropped at the very beginning?
I got dropped out of the first A crit I did. Actually, the first 3 A crits I did. I got dropped on the first lap.
Okay.
So first B crit I did, I got dropped, and then I puked because I was trying really hard. And
There
couldn't
you
hold.
go.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, everybody.
It's
yeah,
okay. It
everybody.
doesn't matter, right?
No,
Like,
it's fine, and
it's
that's the whole point, or the point of racing, and especially bike racing. Like it basically just introduces you to failure until you don't fail, which is so rare. Like that's how it works.
people fail their entire career, never
Yes.
win a single race, and have a successful career.
Yeah. That's what it is. So like the I believe on youtube.com/trainerroad, Pete has a video where he talks about different measures of success. And it's important because I think that not enough, going back to the motivation point, it can be so demotivating, but all you're really doing, the performance isn't demotivating. It's just the performance relative to your expectations. And if your expectations were set incorrectly, then you're just setting yourself up for it. So can I jump into one?
I was going to this is why I like power PRs rather than race outcomes. Because
Totally.
if you can look at, I did more power this time, I'm getting fitter, then it doesn't matter who showed up or how your tactics were. Then also when I don't have more power, I say, I did better tactics, or I was better at this certain skill. So it's a journey of improvement, self-improvement that you make, and you happen to be racing with other people. At least that's for me.
Yeah.
And I've won some lower category races too, but for me, it's not a failure if I don't win.
Yeah.
Besides for the 40K TT, that was a failure. That was all about winning.
Yeah.
This is a super good question. We may need more time for this one, but it's from Christian. He says, if you could get one or several things researched, what would they be?
Researched?
Yeah, like if you
In
get
general?
one or several things researched that currently aren't.
Yeah. So my big thing right now, and
I knew you'd have things on deck.
I
for
hope
this one.
Chad had. I hope Chad was going to come back with some data on this.
Yeah.
But I'm really interested in your gut biome, the bacteria in your stomach, and how that plays into your immune system and actual aerobic performance. And the immune system you probably heard before, but there's the idea that aerobic performance might also be influenced by your gut biome.
Yeah.
And then the part that I want is, it sounds weird, but poop research. So I feel like it's a new...
People are volunteering everywhere. Yeah.
It's a new category of we got antibiotics from mold with cheese, and we didn't want to. No one wanted to deal with that because it was gross.
Yeah.
And now they're actually doing poop transplants where they would put Pete's poop inside of me to try to get that bacteria into my body. I'm not sure exactly what the scientific term is for that.
Yeah.
But that is such an exciting area, and I hope that they can, rather than transplant poop, that they would be able
just figure out how to
extract the bacteria.
Yep.
And for a better immune system for people and aerobic performance,
Athletic performance.
What could I eat then to influence that? And I'm trying to do probiotics and stuff. And probiotics are so tough because you don't know. It's hard to measure. You can't measure them, right? You can't look at it and be like, this is a good probiotic. There's expensive ones, and it's marketing,
super hard.
and they could die, and you don't. And there's different stuff, right? It's not like water where you can taste it and it's like, this is not clean water, or you can look at it. And even to that is to an extent, but
That's really funny, Nate. So did you know that that's what I was studying? Those two exact things is what I was studying with my
Gosh dang it, Pete, finish it.
Postgraduate degree.
Yeah. Where's the data?
We never did it. No, but I do think there has to be some connection with athletic performance and gut biome. And when we were looking at it, it seemed like high level athletes had more interesting biomes.
Meaning more varied?
Depends.
Okay.
Different amounts and differing actual. It was all that we were trying to come up with something that kind of connected the dots about why high level athletes have certain biomes and what it's made of, and so it's like I said, I moved to Denver instead. So, but I do think there is very worthwhile data there that needs to be found out.
So is it what they're eating? Is it their diet? Is it their lifestyles where maybe lower cortisol because they're not so stressed out as everyone else having a normal job? Or is it something like part of their genetics? They're more likely to have a certain type? Like, it's all very interesting.
It's all very interesting. I think it's a magical combination of the life of a pro athlete is really interesting from a cortisol level and from a dietary, like almost all high level, none of them eat poorly anymore, right?
Right.
So it's I think all these things build on one another, and I think if you can recreate a pro level athlete lifestyle, your training will noticeably improve. That was one of the things we used to do is you would treat a big, like pick one training day a week that you're usually your biggest and treat it like a race. Like purposely go to sleep early, hydrate, eat proper meals beforehand, just like you do for a race. And if you do that over the course of a whole season, that's a big increase. Like you got to rev your engine more each and every time.
I try to do that every single workout.
Nate optimizes across the board.
Yeah.
And we all should.
Yeah.
No, that's a big. If you're going into workouts not optimizing, you're leaving a lot of training on the table.
There's so often that late at night I will eat a bowl of cereal because the next morning I know I have a large workout and I'm not necessarily hungry the night before, but I want to have a few more carbs in my system because in the morning I know that I'm going to be depleted. It's going to be 2 hours of sweet spot. Like there's no way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to gain fat from this.
You're not eating the cereal because you just are. It's like a guilty pleasure. You're eating it purely driven on the fact that you have the workout.
And maybe it's raw oats, muesli kind of stuff. It's
Right.
not like Captain Crunch.
Yeah. Not yet.
So I have 3 things that I want to be studied. First is an actual comprehensive study on elevation, because I feel like we have one that proves one side, one that proves the other, but nothing that actually and actually we just have rumor perhaps on the Team Sky one, which they may very well just be throwing out false rumors, who knows, to throw us all off the scent.
Yeah.
But I want a comprehensive study on elevation and how it affects performance. I would prefer that be in cyclists, but whatever. The other one, and this is kind of a long ways off, but I'd like to somehow get a better handle on the physical demands or energy expenditure of mountain biking.
That was actually mine. Or I would love mountain biking TSS.
Yes.
Like real mountain biking TSS.
It'd be amazing. I don't know how we'd have to wear like a suit that measures heat, and then that would have to be somehow very complex, and we'd have to get that. But I don't know. That's one thing. I mean, it's all pie in the sky at this point. And then the other thing, just as like a personal one, I'd like to see if there are, like, what are the performance implications of high producers of lactate, or what are the drivers behind that, other than perhaps just muscle fiber composition. And I'd like to see the implications on that, because after we did our lactate testing and I saw how high my lactate levels were, I then I looked around and searched on PubMed and on a number of different resources trying to find other examples of high lactate. And the highest I found was the same amount that I had, and it was a slalom skier. So I'd be interested just to find out more about that, understand me more. Pete, you?
Yeah, I love the thought of mountain biking TSS. That would be so interesting.
Awesome.
The other one that I would love a far-reaching study is the amount of zero pedaling that race winners have, like through all sorts of different, every single type of race category we could think of, and see how that actually plays in. I think it would be pretty. We have the data, so
yeah, we do.
We should probably.
We have one last question to do. This one says, Pete, in order to become a smarter racer, I want to hear the dumbest thing you've done in a crit, so I never do that.
There's so many.
I do dumb things all the time. attacking from the gun is almost always a bad idea. I mean, no matter how you justify it to yourself, it's not beneficial. So don't do that. That's a really good one just to hold on to and just be like, even if you're like, well, I lined up at the front, everybody was going really slow. There was some turns. There was a $20 preem. It's like you can try to justify it to yourself.
Jonathan
so many
did this.
You can try to justify.
I have a comment for this. Yeah.
You can justify it to yourself in 1,000 ways. I guarantee you won't win the race.
There's one case where it works.
It worked.
But here's the thing: even if it does work, that doesn't mean that it was the best choice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So like, there are so many ways that you can win a race. Just there are countless ways to lose one.
Yeah.
And this is one where the risk is just extremely, extremely high, and the odds are very much against you.
Yeah.
So like, even if it did end up well, that doesn't mean that was the best decision to make.
Yeah.
You could have made other decisions that would have been better. Probably taught you more as a racer, maybe allowed you to be a little bit more fresh for the subsequent workouts. I don't know. But even if it ends up working out, remember that doesn't mean that was the only possibility for that outcome to happen. And remember also to the fact that you probably could have done much smarter things.
The reason why it worked in our local race series is, so we're in Reno, and it's like a 2.5 hour drive to get to actual USAC, like categories races. A lot of high level racers here though. And it finally opened up, and a bunch of people who were really like Cat 1, Cat 2, maybe national champs in another sport, or podium, like Jonathan, in national champs in another sport, or another cycling discipline. They all lined up against real Cat 5 racers.
Yeah.
So when the gun goes off, all the Cat 1 people sprinted and got into a breakaway. So it's a Cat 1 breakaway. We looked at it. Our average speed was higher than the A race.
I think we had like 28. 27?
No, it was 27s. But we would have, historically, our breakaway would have, we would have won the A race, which is with other Cat 1 racers. Yeah. Justin Rossi, second at national TTs, like a very, very fast group. Was working really hard together. So that's the only, I mean, if you're not racing your category, I've said before, it's like,
you throw the rule book out the window.
Exactly, and you can do whatever you want. But in general, if you're racing in the right category, attacking off the front is not smart.
It's never smart. Yeah, like Jonathan says, there's like 100 different scenarios following that are all better.
Yeah.
Even if you win, there was a better way to win, an easier way to win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's and I guess the best thing is you'll still make those mistakes. I don't know if it was Feed Zone memes or Cat 3 memes that posted something up that was showing like a bear trap, and it was showing like a Venus fly trap and a few things and saying like, oh, that's ridiculous, bears. Why would you step in that? And then it said like a solo break, and it was like, ooh, that looks nice. like that's totally us, man. We're just not good at doing that. Once the gun goes off, we lose our minds. So thanks for joining, everybody. Thanks, Pete, for joining us.
For sure. Thanks for having me,
guys.
Hopefully
Coach Chad is feeling better for next week and can be back. And submit the questions that you do have at trainerroad.com/podcast. We got a ton of them this week. So we'll have some of the ones that you submitted this week, hopefully into next week's as well. And we'll talk to you all soon. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.